Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Saying this, group leader Ron hurriedly had the Cypher Pal 9 agent member next to him take him over. Wait. Suddenly, a gray-green-haired young man holding a peculiar yellow canister launcher in both hands blocked group leader Ron. This caused the 2 Cypher Pal agent members responsible for his safety to instinctively step forward 2 steps and shield Ron behind them. I don't care who you are, give Mumai back to me. This person was precisely the protagonist of this world, named Ikema. He was also a Kabinari, half human and half Kabane, and extremely skilled at developing steam equipment. Oh, another key target. Group leader Ron, this kid is also a Kabane warrior, but they call them Kabinari. Lucci walked over and said softly. Then capture him first. We can explain slowly after returning to the base. I'm not very interested in him right now. Group leader Ron said casually with a nod after finishing. He and Lucci didn't know yet that this kid in front of them was the only wild and male Kabinari in this world, meaning he was an existence who had turned himself into a Kabinari. The second point was that men were far less tolerant of pain than women, so after many experiments, Dr. Shawai and his team discovered that the success rate of turning woman into Kabinari was much higher than that of man. Kid, do you want this little girl? That's fine, but are you going to obediently come with us, or do you want to be knocked out and carried away like her? The Cypher Pal agent member holding Mumai walked over and grinned. I suggest you just come along honestly. It'll save us the trouble, don't you think? Ikema tightly gripped the handle of the piercing gun, his finger poised before the trigger, ready for shooting at any moment. However, when he heard this person's words, he immediately became conflicted. He was sometimes impulsive, but that was when he was sticking to his convictions. Normally, however, he was very rational. The current situation was that with his own strength, it was unlikely he could snatch Mumai back from so many people. Instead, he might just die in vain. Fortunately, the other party asked if he wanted to be knocked out, which meant they didn't want to kill him for now. Since that was the case, the optimal choice was to stay conscious and follow them. Only then could he keep an eye on Mumai's situation. I understand, I'll go with you. Ikema reluctantly put down the piercing gun he had developed himself. This was a weapon he had personally researched and developed, possessing stronger penetration and impact force than ordinary steam guns. Its power was enough to easily pierce through 10-centimeter thick steel plate. In the distance, the double new battle between Steve Gus and Mekko was still ongoing. The former seemed to be enjoying himself and had no intention of quickly ending the combat. Lucci and the other few Cypher Pal 9 agent members who stayed behind to continue monitoring watched the newcomer playing around there, speechless. Captain, should we remind him? Let's wait and see. I'm a bit curious about their strength too. On the other side, Mata and the 4 arriving Cypher Pal 9 agent members who stayed at the station had already brought Dr. Shawai, Yatsugawa, Yukina, Kurasu, and others to the head train car of the Katetsugyo, guarding the peculiar heart that was blooming with bright blue light. To be honest, this thing looked quite beautiful. But the thought that it was fed with the blood of hundreds of Kabane made Yatsugawa and the others shudder. They couldn't believe at first that Mima Amatori actually wanted to bring them to Kongakaku. Group leader Ron and the others are coming over. Then where is Captain Rasky? Mata quickly asked. The captain stayed there to continue watching Steve Gus and a new called Mekko fight. The female Cypher Pal 9 agent member who had just arrived not long ago said, glancing at Dr. Shawai beside her. Looks like nothing's wrong, that's good. Mata breathed a sigh of relief, but Dr. Shawai looked at them in surprise and said. Fighting Mekko? How is that possible? I know perfectly well how terrifying the combat strength of Anu is. That's the strength to easily destroy a section of the city wall with a single blow. The female Cypher Pal 9 agent member sneered. The Nu you speak of, our Biochemical Research Institute has already manufactured it, and it's the kind that can retain a clear will. Right now, our Nu is fighting the Nu you created. However, judging from the feedback over there, the latter is completely no match for the former. After hearing this, Dr. Shawa became furious and shouted. Impossible. There is no researcher in all of Hinamoto who understands the Kabane better than me. I've researched it for over 10 years. A new that retains its self-will simply cannot exist, or rather, it's impossible for anyone other than me to create one. Hey, group leader Ron will be here soon. You can ask him yourself then. The female Cypher Pol 9 agent member curled her lip in disdain, thinking to herself. Natives are just natives, they have no insight. Just as the dispute between the two sides had eased slightly, and while Dr. Shawai was still about to ask something further, a series of woo-woo-woo alarm whistles came from the distance. This sound made Mata look up instantly. There was no helping it, it was too familiar eyes. What is that? Another train? Everyone looked up and saw another black iron-armored train slowly approaching along the track. Since the city gate was already wide open at this time, the train didn't need to wait for the gate to open. Huh? Why is there a second black train? Yatsugawa-ayam asked in surprise and doubt. One should know that all iron-armored trains in the entire country were white, only the Hunter Guard's Katetsugyo was deliberately painted black. By its appearance, it seems to be the Yashiro train, a type of iron fortress mainly used for transporting iron body, but the color has changed. Yukina, the train conductor who understood Iron Fortress the most among the people present, said hesitantly. Our army has arrived. Chapter 176, 10 chapters. The hopeful laughter brought by the sandstorm. Click, 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 army? Dr. Shawai and the others listened to the extremely familiar sound of the train, watching in shock as the black train, which Yukina called the Yashiro train, slowly approached. You actually have your own army. Yatsugawa-ayam looked at Mata seriously and asked. Which region's influence do you belong to? Also, the Yashiro train should be the exclusive train of Yashiro Station, why is it in the hands of your army? Of course, we occupied it, does that even need asking? Mata looked at the other party in confusion, then spread her hands and said helplessly. Don't ask so many questions for now. You'll understand everything in a few days. Before that, just listen and watch. Occupied? You're preparing to rebel against the shogunate. Dr. Shawai exclaimed in surprise. Hey. Mata sneered, not bothering to respond to him, and thought to herself. What is the shogunate? Is it even worthy of the world government rebelling against it? In a few days, you won't even know if your shogunate still exists. Hiss, with a sound of air releasing, the Yashiro train stopped next to the Katetsugyo. The next moment, the train car iron doors were pushed open one by one. A large number of army soldiers, dressed in black military uniforms and holding automatic rifles, poured out from inside. Quick. Column. Move out. In the blink of an eye, troops quickly forming columns appeared on the station platform. They were led by officers dressed in suits and wearing black justice coats draped over their shoulders. Forming a long line, they walked out of the station one by one to the sound of their footsteps. Throughout the entire process, no one paid any attention to Mata's group. This is your army? Dr. Shawai was completely dumbfounded. Not to mention him, even Kurasu, who was a samurai, was stunned. When had they ever seen such a disciplined and well-equipped modern army? They originally thought the Hunter Guard soldiers were the most elite troops. Compared to these so-called army, they couldn't even be called a regular army. Not to mention the city defense troops of the various stations. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, suddenly, about 5 or 6 meters in front of them. Under the dumbfounded gaze of Yatsugawa-ayam, Yukina, and the others, a black figure appeared out of thin air within the rapidly swirling sandstorm. This person's attire was no different from the officers passing by. They were all wearing a black coat with the word justice written on the back. Only the suit underneath was yellow. The key was his method of appearance and his tall body size, estimated to be up to 2.5 meters. Vice Admiral Crocodile. Mata took a step forward and respectfully greeted him softly. Although both sides belonged to different departments and had no superior-subordinate relationship. But the other party's strength was enough to earn her respect. Crocodile responded with a nasal sound. He then looked down and swept his gaze over Zhuang Wei and the others. Are they the important targets Addison mentioned? Are they all here? Including Mima Amatori, there are still 4 targets who haven't arrived, but they should be here soon. Mata said softly. Then tell them to hurry up. The people we brought from Yashiro Station will operate the Katetsugyo. You will ride it back first later. After giving the instructions, Crocodile no longer paid attention to them. He took a cigar from his pocket, put it in his mouth, and lit it casually with a lighter. Exhaling a puff of smoke, he once again turned into a sandstorm and vanished without a trace. Yatsugawa-ayam murmured to herself. So he's the god of sand that the people of Yashiro Station talked about. Could he really be a deity who descended to the mortal realm? Yukina, and Purus's worldviews were collapsing. Their nerves were even becoming numb from the excessive number of consecutive shocks. On the contrary, Dr. Shawa didn't think about deities at all, but instead looked at Mata excitedly. What was that? How did you make him possess that ability? Is it a new type of biochemical virus? Oh my god, that's simply a miracle. In his eyes, all supernatural abilities came from artificial technology. Go ask Dr. Fritz when you get to the base. I believe he'll be happy to introduce you to our world, but I'm not interested. Let's go. You heard what was just said. Get on the train. Mata swayed her sexy slender waist and perky buttocks dismissively, walking with a beautiful cat-like stride towards one of the train cars of the Kotetsugyo. Outside the station. They are. Group leader Ron and the others, who were walking with Mima Amatori, Ikema, and Mumai, all looked delighted as they watched the large troops running out. Has the army arrived? At this moment, Mumai had woken up and was following beside Ikema with a blank expression. Having learned her lesson, she no longer dared to act recklessly, but her eyes were darting back and forth. However, whether it was her or Mima Amatori. At this moment, they were both surprised as they watched the army unit walking past them. Judging by the direction, they seemed to be heading inside the city. Looking at them, are they going to clear out the cabane behind us? Mima Amatori, who had calmed down, asked with a familiar smile. Of course. Every cabane is a very valuable resource, how could we just leave them alone? Group leader Ron said with a matter-of-fact attitude. But you're really ruthless, kid. You killed so many citizens just to get revenge on your father. Mima Amatori's face sank, and he asked. You actually know about my matter? More or less. At this moment, a male member of Cypher Pol 9 agent answered him with a smile, but we can't let you destroy Kongakaku. As for whether Kiyu Amatori can be handed over to you, it depends on the intentions of the higher-ups. You can make a good case then. So that's it. You attacked me because of Kongakaku? No, besides that, your own value isn't small either, kid. Have some confidence in yourself, you're quite the talent. Just as they were walking towards the station and chatting and laughing, a series of gunshots, different from the steam guns that Mima Amatori and the others were familiar with, began to ring out behind them. Compared to the muffled sound of steam guns, the sound of automatic rifles was clearly much louder. The key was that their rate of fire, far exceeding the former, made the gunshots very dense and rapid. This made Mima Amatori, who had always been interested in the military, very eager to go and see. But clearly, group leader Ron and the others wouldn't allow it. Ah, no. Quick, run. Live. Son, you must live. The city center of Hidden Stone's village Station City had already turned into a living hell at this moment. Kabane were everywhere, frantically chasing and biting people who were desperately fleeing or resisting with steam guns. Mother. A boy who looked only about 10 years old watched tearfully as his young mother, holding a stick, launched a suicidal charge towards several Kabane with mouths full of blood. However, with the city defense troops completely collapsing and even being massacred in large numbers by the Hunter Guard, how could a young child possibly escape with his life? The mother actually knew this point clearly in her heart. She just felt that even if it was just for a second, it was worth it for her son to live a few minutes longer than her. Whoosh, just as the little boy was about to witness his mother being eaten alive by the Kabane, a large amount of sandstorm rapidly appeared in the surrounding air, covering an area of several hundred meters. Countless yellowish-brown sand formed a layer of rapidly rotating sand wall around all the survivors, sending all the pouncing Kabane flying away. Ha! 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 The next moment, a long laugh, like heavy breathing, echoed throughout the entire Hidden Stones village Station City, momentarily suppressing the roars of the Kabane and the desperate screams of the people. Inexplicably, it became the sound that brought hope to the people still struggling to survive in this living hell. 10 chapters. 10 chapters. Little author kept his word, said he'd release 10 chapters, and release 10 chapters. Woo woo woo. Now there are no saved drafts again, sobbing. Chapter 177, The Elite Troops Trained by Bullet. What? What's going on? Sand? Sand? The survivors on the various streets of Hidden Stone's village station watched in shock as the sand rapidly spun around them. No matter how the Kabane outside lunged, they would be sent flying by the powerful centrifugal force the moment they touched the surface of the sand layer, giving the people inside an unparalleled sense of security. Ah, it's a deity. Has the Lord Deity finally descended to save us mortals? Are the sand and wine the god of Shukaku from Nara? Just as they were crying tears of joy, their fleeing footsteps unwittingly stopped, which drew someone's dissatisfaction. Idiots, all of you run. Run towards the station to the east. Crocodile, who had manifestation into sand and was hidden within a large sandstorm, reformed his upper body in the air. He was seen with a smoking cigar in his mouth, shouting loudly towards the entire city. It was unclear how he managed to shout while keeping the cigar from falling out of his mouth. This could probably be considered a skill, right? The Lord Deity is angry. Quick, quick, listen to the command of the god of Shukaku. We are saved. We can live. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children were instantly startled awake by the angry shout and quickly converged towards the east. With the protection of the spinning sand layer, they didn't need to worry about the cabane along the way, which made their expressions increasingly excited and their belief that a deity had descended even stronger. There was no helping it, this was a nation with many gods and ghosts, and the events happening before them were indeed too fantastical. At this moment, if one were to look down at the entire Hidden Stones village tow station from above, they would see a faint yellow sandstorm covering the entire city. This was, of course, caused by Crocodile using his ability. Although his Logia system Sand Fruit had not yet undergone awakening, these so-called stations weren't that large anyway, they were just ordinary ancient cities. With his current strength, covering a small city was not a problem. TSK, what a troublesome mission. Crocodile looked down with annoyance at the crowd below, who were running desperately like ants. Before coming, Senior Director Addison had requested that their army ensure the safety of as many citizens as possible, citing the reason that population is labor force. He was now an army lieutenant general and naturally had to stand on the world government's stance on interests. He also understood that what the other party said made a lot of sense. The subsequent development of this world would definitely require these natives to work hard for their homeland construction. Otherwise, if everyone died, wouldn't they have to bring people from the homeland? Too much loss. Stop advancing. Maintain vigilance. Stop advancing. Maintain vigilance. The black-clad soldiers from the army headquarters on the world government's homeland spread out along the railway on both sides after exiting the station. They first cleared out the cabane along the way, then stopped on the officers' orders, sealing off the periphery of the main built-up area from the east side, and aiming their muzzles at the city enveloped by the sandstorm. Soon, various shouts, some filled with ecstatic surprise, others with fear and unease, reached their ears from far to near. Following closely, citizens surrounded by yellow sand rushed out. Among them were young people who were city guard soldiers, still holding steam guns that had turned into sticks because the high-pressure boiler behind the waist had run out of steam. There were also young mothers holding young children, their faces pale and breathless, yet still gritting their teeth and running. And there were adult sons sweating profusely, carrying their elderly fathers and desperately moving their legs. Ah, it's the troops. Ha 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 ha, could it be that the lords of the shogunate haven't given up on us and have sent troops to save us? Idiots, look at their black uniforms, they must be from the Hunter Guard. That's not right, I heard someone say before that the Hunter Guard led the cabane into the city. Some young people who still had some energy left ran and shouted excitedly at the Black Army in the distance, fully venting their emotions from surviving a calamity. First, a deity descended, and then troops came to meet them. How could they not be happy? Huh? However, strange things began to happen. When they were about 30 to 40 meters away from the first column of army soldiers, the sand layer that had been silently protecting them began to prevent them from moving forward, causing the citizens to panic. Idiots, stand still or sit down and rest. If you dare to move again, I'll throw you back. Crocodile's voice rang out again. Although his tone was full of impatience and his attitude wasn't good, these surviving citizens didn't feel anything was wrong. Instead, they breathed a sigh of relief with joyful expressions, indicating that the Lord Deity had not abandoned them. Meanwhile, Crocodile issued orders to his troops from the air. First column, enter the urban area by team. Free fire is permitted. Deprive all cabane of their mobility. Clean it up thoroughly. Yes. Upon receiving the order, the infantry soldiers, grouped in teams of 5, first put on the tactical goggles around their necks. Then, following a formation of 2 in front, 1 in the middle, and 2 in the back, they advanced rapidly, holding their heavy assault rifles. They walked past the survivors who were forcibly isolated by the sandstorm, paying no attention or concern to the complex gazes of surprise, gratitude, and worship in the latter's eyes. Because within their line of sight, living dead with purplish-black skin, jet-black eye whites, and gunfire flashes in their pupils and hearts were chasing after the subsequent citizens. Ho-ah-roar. Ha-ah, their numbers were vast, especially many. For a moment, the air was filled with the unclear roars of these cabane, but immediately, as the first soldier pulled the trigger, the even louder and denser gunshot brutally suppressed everything. Da-da-da-da-da-da. All the army warriors in the first column began intense continuous shooting. Bright gunfire flashes constantly erupted from their muzzles. Bullets with a caliber of 7 mm formed a firepower net in the air, instantly knocking down the foremost cabane and then continuing to bite the cabane behind them. The power of these bullets was extremely terrifying. As long as they bit the body of a Cabane, a large bloody wound would definitely appear at that position. If the limbs were hit, the limbs would break. If the neck was hit, the neck would snap. If the face was hit, it would instantly turn into a burst watermelon. This was the terrifying firepower of the heavy assault rifle against the human body. However, the effective range of this gun was a bit short, but its penetration power at close range was very strong. These were the firearms carefully selected by the Army headquarters based on the characteristics of the Cabane. However, the price of strong firepower was strong recoil and a higher weight than standard rifles, but this didn't have much impact on these soldiers from the Sea Star mainland. From the current effect, they were indeed satisfied. Although the surging Cabane were like a surging black tide, they crashed against the invisible cliff under the alternating shooting of the three firing lines. The soldiers didn't need to aim at a glowing heart, they only needed to hit the legs or brain to stop their operation. Gradually, they actually began to push back. The front row was responsible for giving every fallen Cabane an extra shot to blow off its head, while the people behind provided fire support. It must be said that this batch of army trained personally by bullet showed a bit of the elite temperament, but their numbers were too small, only 5,000 in total. Crocodile only brought 1,000 of these 5,000 people this time. The majority of the army remaining on the homeland actually hadn't changed much. In terms of psychological quality during combat alone, they were even inferior to the hunter's soldier who engaged in melee combat year-round with the Cabane. Chapter 178, Cypher Paul 9 Agent prepares to return to base. Inside the station, hearing the continuous dense gunshot outside, Yatsugawa and the others all showed a hint of joy. They really are clearing out the Cabane. Right, what about the citizens who are still alive? How do you plan to handle them? Yatsugawa asked with a worried expression. Mata gave a shake head, replying calmly. I'm not sure, that's the army's business, it has nothing to do with our Cypher Paul. This. Yatsugawa, who cared deeply for the citizens, bit her lip, looking troubled. Just then, footsteps sounded from behind them. Everyone looked over and saw Mima Amatori, Ikema, Miyumai, and others being brought over by another group of men in black. Miss Ikema. Miyumai is here too, it's great that you're all safe. Familiar faces from the same iron fortress successfully met up, making the atmosphere lively. You must be Dr. Shawai, who researches the Kabinari virus, right? At this moment, group leader Ron, wearing the white coats exclusive to researchers, instantly focused on Dr. Shawai, who had the most similar demeanor. Although the latter wore punk-style night vision goggles around his neck, his loose white coats was eye-catching. That's me. Are you the person from that Biochemical Research Institute they mentioned? Dr. Shawai asked group leader Ron, who had walked up to him, then immediately said. Did you really create a new that retains self-awareness? New? The latter looked at him with a confused expression. He's referring to Steve Gus. It seems they call the Cabane warrior with a blue light heart new. Mata explained from the side. Oh. Group leader Ron suddenly understood and smiled. Oh, you call that a new? That's a good name, I'm sure Director Fritz will like it. That's right, Gus did retain consciousness. You'll be able to see him in a moment. Immediately after, he looked at Dr. Shawai and extended an invitation. Oh, right, I heard there's a blue light heart here. Could you please take me to see it? How about we chat a bit while we're at it? Alright. Dr. Shawai didn't hesitate at all. He was now eager to understand what exactly the world government was, what the Biochemical Research Institute was, and how they managed to make the new retain consciousness. Compared to all this, Mima Amatori, his former employer, was worthless in his eyes. The key was that this new tissue called the world government was clearly much stronger than the Hunter Guard. As long as they were willing to support his research on the Kabinari virus, he was very happy to switch locations and bosses. Now we just need to wait for Lucci and Steve Gus to bring that new over. I really want to get back to the base quickly and take a nice, comfortable hot water bath. Mata stretched lazily, a movement full of sexiness and charm, drawing the gaze of many men present. Even the somewhat naive Ikema and Kurisa turned their heads away, blushing. This made the ladies nearby, such as Miyumai, and Yukina, roll their eyes speechlessly at the two of them. But even they felt that Mata's clothing and figure were overly full of sexiness. Any casual movement could make conservative people feel awkward. Only Mima Amatori was still silently looking towards the direction outside the station, listening intently to the somewhat noisy, continuous gunshot. Mata. Just then, Lucci and the others finally arrived. Among them, Steve Gus was carrying the unconscious Mekawina Princess Carrie. You're finally here. Mata said, overjoyed. Captain. The four Cypher Paul 9 agent members who remained at the station quickly greeted him. Lucci looked at them and nodded, not saying anything like you worked hard or it's good that you're safe. Truly, In this Kabanrai world, there wasn't much that could threaten them besides the black smoke and the new. Ah, a perfect new. Suddenly, Dr. Shawai's excited shout came from the front of the Katetsugio. Group leader Ron behind him watched him with a wry smile. He hadn't even said a couple of sentences before jumping directly off the train. This personality, it really is a bit like Dr. Fritz. Dr. Shawai quickly ran up to Steve Gus, examining him from head to toe with surprise. Especially the blue light heart on his chest, his neck, and his pupil were the key targets of his gaze. You didn't even use heart iron to block the blood flow in the left carotid artery. How did you prevent the virus from invading your brain? And you're a man. Huh? Of course I'm a man. How awesome is it to be a man? Steve Gus said dismissively with a pout. As for the virus, you just need to control the blood flow. At first, I couldn't sleep too deeply, but I've gotten used to this feeling. Once it became a body instinct, it was fine. Dr. Shawai listened, mouth agape, unsure what to say. 3 golden question marks appeared above his head. He thought to himself. What is this guy talking nonsense about? Controlling blood? And it became an instinct? But he immediately thought of the giant whose body could turn into sandstorm earlier and instantly felt that this must be some kind of amazing biochemical technology. It seems I must join this world government. This is a bit too appealing. As for whether it was a tissue rebelling against the shogunate, did that have anything to do with him? Alright, time to go. Lucci and Mata exchanged a few quiet words. Lucci pushed up his dark red sunglasses, stepped forward, and coldly prompted. This place has nothing to do with us anymore. Return to base immediately. But at this moment, Yatsugawa Iom stepped forward, looked at him, and sincerely lowered her head to request. This lord, I am the current chief steward of Aragane Station. Inside the city, there are still many citizens we brought with us. May I ask if they can be taken along with the Iron Fortress? Also, the surviving citizens of Hidden Stone's Villigto Station, I believe they also need our leadership and management. Lord Iom. Samurai Kurisu's expression changed. That's right. Sakari, Takami, Moji, and Mr. Kibito are all in the fortress. We can't just leave like this. Ikuma shouted. Lucci glanced coldly at Ikuma and snorted. Shut up, this isn't your place for speaking. Then his gaze turned to Yatsugawa Iom's pretty face, which was full of Eastern gentle temperament but had an exceptionally sincere and firm gaze. In his eyes, this girl's identity was different from Ikuma's. The former was an orphan, cared about the citizens, was pure-hearted, and was a regional leader with extremely high political value, while the latter was just an ordinary Kabanrai. The army will arrange for those citizens. However, I can help you contact the higher-ups at the base. If they refuse, you can only cooperate obediently. Lucci gave this answer after a moment of thought, which made Iom and the others show expression that were both happy and a little nervous. The former gently gave a shake head, took out a transponder snail from his pocket, then picked up the handset on its back, and turned the dial a few times. This process again drew the curious gaze of these people. With a few porta sounds, the call was quickly answered on the other end. Hello? This is Lucci of Cypher Pol 9 agent. We are preparing to take all key targets back to the base. However, the chief steward named Yatsugawa Iom wants. Lucci explained the situation in full detail in front of everyone. After Senior Director Addison on the other end heard it, he smiled and said. Alright. Ah, that's great. Iom, Ikuma, Mumai, and the others were all overjoyed. Miss Yatsugawa Iom and those few ordinary people can stay there and help the army manage the citizens. The citizens will likely feel more at ease with them, which will be very helpful for the stability of order. Suddenly, the transponder snail's tone became serious. However, Dr. Shawai, Mima Amatori, and those few Kabane warrior, must be brought back to the base immediately. There is no room for negotiation. 2 chapters updated today, the last one will be posted this afternoon. Here, I sincerely thank all the great reader who gave this book a tip, monthly pass, recommendation, and subscription. You are truly handsome, cool, and simply incomparable. Don't know why, this description suddenly appeared in my mind, crying laughing. I feel that yesterday's 4 updates might be something I can never do again in this life. It was truly too tiring. But it's good now, the update pace has finally returned to normal. Ah, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 179, Bread, Milk, and Luncheon Meat. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The continuous sound of gunshot lasted throughout the night, occasionally mixed with the roar of grenades. At this moment, Iron Fortress had already left first, carrying Cypher Pol 9 agent and Mima Amatori. Only the Iron Fortress and Hidden Stone's Villigto Castle remained quietly at the station. The 1,000 elite army soldiers led by Crocodile had annihilated most of the Kabane under the firepower net. In front of 1,000 heavy assault rifles with sufficient ammunition, unless they condensed into giant black smoke, basically, no matter how many came, they would fall. The periphery of the built-up area was now piled high with layers upon layers of severed Cabane limbs and bodies. The entire scene could only be described as a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Against the backdrop of the night sky and moonlight, it was truly a doomsday painting with a theme of slaughter. But their very existence also created an obstacle for the army to enter inside the city. The soldiers had to use a large number of grenades to blast open a bloody passage. As for moving them away, that was out of the question. Who knew if there were any Cabane that weren't completely dead inside? They might take a bite while the soldiers were moving them. Although every soldier had put on metal arm guards and leg armor before coming, facing a biochemical virus that could infect them with just a small wound, no one was willing to take such a meaningless risk. Next, they still had to enter the interior of the large area filled with buildings, search out the hidden Cabane one by one, and then completely clear them out. In fact, this was the most dangerous part of this combat mission. In comparison, facing the Cabane horde that resembled a black tide was much easier. They only needed to continuously pull the trigger, then switch position and change magazines. As long as the firepower was sufficient and the ammunition was abundant, there was really no technology requirement. During this process, Crocodile would not step in to help. This was an order transmitted to him by Bullet via transponder snail, the purpose being to train this batch of army soldiers. To be honest, Crocodile really didn't want to agree, for no other reason than being annoyed. He was a vice admiral, and Bullet was also a vice admiral. Why should he act according to the other party's instructions? But he couldn't come up with a suitable reason to refute. Crocodile was already aware of the current situation of the army. Although they were called Army Headquarters soldiers, their overall entity quality was actually similar to the Marines' 4 Blues branch soldiers. How could this be acceptable? He was now an Army Vice Admiral, and in the future, he was a man who would become an Army Admiral, or even an Army Marshal. If the soldiers under him were inferior to those at Marine headquarters, wouldn't that also be a loss of face for him, the Sand Crocodile? Furthermore, he didn't know how to train soldiers himself. Therefore, Crocodile, who was not a reckless man, could only chew on a smoking cigar while looking down from high altitude with a face full of displeasure as teams of army soldiers scattered into various streets, engaging in the most brutal alley combat with the Cabane that occasionally lunged out. TCH, what's so great about training troops? Admiral, Marshal, it's not about training troops. The most important things are strength and strategy. But at this moment, both Crocodile and Bullet overlooked an even more important factor: support from the higher-ups. Outside the station, a large open space had been cleared, and 2 large tents were set up, one on the left and one on the right. Behind the large tents, pieces of square cloth of various colors were pieced together and spread on the ground. Line up. Men in one line, women in one line. I believe everyone is very familiarized with inspections. Keep quiet, don't move around. A slightly overweight short-haired young man, wearing a light green coat and blue cloth clothing underneath, was holding a loudspeaker made of iron plating, constantly shouting loudly at the citizens at the back of the queue. He was Takumi, Ikuma's good friend and a participant in the development of the piercing gun. Like Ikuma, he was previously a station worker at Aragane Station, mainly responsible for inspecting the incoming and outgoing station city. Actually, he wasn't needed for order. Firstly, there were hundreds of army soldiers armed with heavy assault rifles guarding the long queue. Secondly, the sand layer on these survivors hadn't dissipated yet. But Yatsugawa Ilm still had Takumi come out and speak. It turned out the effect was very good. His voice gave these survivors from Aragane Station and Hidden Stones Village Tow Station a strange sense of security. After all, his attire and appearance clearly showed he was one of them. Sometimes, familiarize is the best calming agent. Inside the tent, a young girl naturally took off her light yellow kimono, standing there naked, allowing Yukina and Moji beside her to carefully examine all parts of her body, checking for any wounds caused by Cabane. And Yatsugawa Ilm stood not far away, facing the girl undergoing the inspection with a gentle smile, which gradually calmed the latter's nervous heart. Safe. Safe. As Yukina and Moji spoke one after another, the girl visibly breathed a sigh of relief and began to put her clothing back on. Then, she shyly saluted Yatsugawa Ilm and quickly walked out of the tent from the other end. Behind her, an older woman entered the tent in order and began undergoing the exact same inspection. Here. Just as the first kimono girl who had finished her inspection was about to find a place to sit down and rest for a while, she noticed 3 square tables set up next to the exit. Seeing the things on the tables, the girl froze there. On the first square table were stacks of yellowish block-shaped objects. On the second square table were small white boxes the size of a palm. On the third square table seemed to be small iron cans. At the same time, Next to the 3 square tables stood a public notice board, on which a few brief lines of writing were written in their most familiarized Japanese language. 1 bread, 1 box of milk, and 1 can of luncheon meat constitute 1 portion. Including children, each person may only take their own portion of food. After consumption, please return the milk carton and iron can to the designated location, where dedicated personnel will be responsible for recycling. In addition, below, vivid pictures illustrated how to insert the straw into the milk carton and how to open a luncheon meat canned food. This is all for us to eat? But, what is bread? What is luncheon meat, and also, is this milk inside? The girl looked at everything before her in shock. No, that's not right, meat? That's meat inside. Because of the cabane, they had lost most of their land, resulting in very few places left to plant grain. Things like rice and milk were basically only enjoyed regularly by the upper nobles. Meat was even ridiculously expensive. These lower-class citizens could only occasionally buy 1 or 2 meat skewers at the night market to taste. And their staple food was basically things like taro, millet, radish, and mushroom. Don't block the way here, take your things and go eat. At this moment, an army soldier holding an assault rifle and responsible for monitoring urged in a deep voice, which startled the girl. She quickly picked up a piece of bread, a box of milk, and a luncheon meat can, and hurried to the open space covered with a thin cloth to sit down, then curiously examined the things before her. It's so soft or slender. Fair fingers poked the surface of the bread, finding that it could be easily pressed in. The girl picked it up and tried taking a bite, immediately feeling a soft sweetness spread in her mouth. So delicious. For a moment, she felt the happiness brought by the food. The key was that this bread was actually sweet. Was there sugar added inside? That was sugar. Suddenly, from the open space in the men's section opposite, a loud shout of excitement rang out. It turned out someone had successfully opened the iron can and tasted the salty, pink meat block inside. Wow, it's really meat. Chapter 180, Garp appointed as Marine Admiral. Just as the Army headquarters was in full swing with its conquest of the number 0001 Kabanarai world, the Marine headquarters back on the Sea Star mainland was also facing various high-level changes following the conclusion of the Supreme Military Command meeting. But for now, there were no immediate changes. Kong was still the Fleet Admiral, and Sengoku was still a Marine Admiral. Reform and handover were not things that could be completed quickly. The port outside Menaford used to be lined with rows of large warships, but now there were only a few. The truth was, there had been too many missions requiring Marines escorts recently. The warships from the G branches alone were simply not enough, so warships from headquarters had to be dispatched to help, causing the atmosphere on the island to feel quite deserted these past few days. It was under these circumstances that 2 warships slowly arrived, one after the other. I don't know why, but I just feel like the era is changing too fast. I can actually see so many fishmen in this place, and they're all wearing marine uniforms. Garp, accompanied by Dragon and Rear Admiral Bogard behind him, strode towards the Fortress of Justice while looking at the fishmen walking around casually, sighing with emotion. Indeed. Sabati Archipelago has now truly become a fishman safety zone. Human and fishman children run around the streets in groups. Occasionally, you even see children from the Longra tribe and Longleg tribe. No matter how many times I see that screen feed, it feels incredible. Dragon echoed with a relaxed smile on his face. It was quite magical. He, who had originally detested the world government, now felt a sense of appreciation and anticipation. He looked forward to the world government becoming better and better, making the world a better place. The 3 of them walked quickly. Before long, they arrived outside the meeting room inside the fortress. Bogart could not follow them in from here. His military rank was not high enough. However, Bogart didn't mind and casually found a sofa to sit on. Huh? Just you, Fleet Admiral? Garp looked at Kong, who was sitting alone behind the meeting table, and asked in confusion. He had thought Sengoku and Tsuru would also be present. He then plopped down onto a chair, picked his nose, and grumbled. If that's the case, why didn't we just go to your office? Why came to such a big room? Dragon, on the other hand, said little, silently sitting down on the chair opposite Garp. There was nothing he could do, having been beaten too much since childhood, he subconsciously didn't want to sit next to this man. This is... Dragon saw a thick stack of files placed on the table. You 2 read those written materials first, otherwise it's too troublesome to explain. Kong said, now fully understanding Saint Jaga Ursha Saturn's feelings at the time. Without these written materials, just explaining what stargates were and why the reform was happening would take a lot of effort. Hearing this, Garp and Dragon said no more and picked up the documents to read. A few minutes later, Garp's eyes widened, and Dragon's expression changed drastically. Their gazes were fixed on every word on the documents, and they subconsciously slowed down their page-turning speed. For a moment, the only sounds in the large meeting room were their page-turning and gasps. Sitting in the main seat, Kong watched their changing expressions with a smile. He knew that when they had first seen these files in Mary Jo eyes, they had reacted much the same way. Who as expected of father and son, Garp and Dragon exhaled long breaths almost simultaneously. They had finally finished reading all the documents, but they still needed some time to digest the information. 10 minutes later, Kong saw they were ready and smiled. Regarding the stargates and other worlds, I think you've pretty much understood, right? Are there experts in those other worlds? Garp looked up, his gaze burning. He could feel the blood in his body getting excited. Yes, but as the files state, in the number 0001 Kabinari world, no high-level combat power has been discovered yet. But this doesn't mean there won't be any in other worlds in the future. Kong looked at Garp with a serious gaze and said, in fact, it's possible that there are combat power that are even stronger than our high-level, or even top-tier combat power here. Ha 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 ha, isn't that a good thing? Garp laughed excitedly. In his own opinion, his strength had reached a point where he couldn't improve further. If there were indeed opponents stronger than him in other worlds, it meant he had a chance to become even stronger. What if it's an opponent you absolutely cannot resist, or even one that all of us together cannot resist? Do you still think that's a good thing, Garp? Kong shouted loudly. Ah, this. Garp was stunned. Then he stroked his chin and said, all of us together aren't a match? The us you're referring to doesn't sound like it's limited to just the Marines. Could it be that you mean including Whitebeard and that bunch of pirates? That's right. Me, Sengoku, Zephyr, and Whitebeard together still aren't a match for such an existence. That's truly something to look forward to. Garp grinned, causing Dragon opposite him to get a black line across his face, and Kong's forehead to bulge with veins, his fists clenching with grinding sounds. Be serious, you bastard. A huge roar echoed from inside the meeting room, causing Rear Admiral Bogart, who was enjoying his coffee, to pause. Inside the meeting room, Dragon ignored the two big shots arguing and thought about his own matter in his heart, because he had already understood the fundamental reason behind the world government's many major changes recently. The existence of stargates can connect to other worlds. This means the world government can no longer think only about maintaining the influence balance of the home world as before. They need to mobilize the strength of all aspects of the entire world to help the world government conquer and develop the increasing number of new worlds they will face in the future. That's why they took drastic measures to deal with issues like the slave trade, heavenly tribute, pirates, and racial conflicts, which could cause problems in their backyard. Because for the current world government, the planet Sea world is no longer just a ranch to be guarded, but has become the headquarters for conquering the multiverse. Since it is the headquarters, the most important thing is stability. From this perspective, the lives of the citizens of various countries will definitely become better with the influx of resources from various worlds. But at the same time, they must also bear the risk of being counterattacked by powerful civilizations along with the world government. The people of the entire planet Sea have been forcibly tied by the world government to this warship that is gradually accelerating with no final destination. As for closing the stargates and pretending it never happened, while theoretically an option, it is in fact absolutely impossible. The resources of a second habitable planet, their temptation is absolutely fatal to the world government, and to the world itself. Not to mention that it has already been confirmed that there is more than one new world, and there will be more later. Alright. Kong waved his hand, telling Garp to shut up quickly, and pushed one of the two documents on the table in front of him towards the ladder. This is your new position appointment after the reform. Congratulations, you're finally an admiral. What? Garp stood up abruptly, knocking the chair behind him to the ground. He quickly picked up the letter of appointment and looked closely. It was true. Impossible. You want me to be an admiral to wipe the asses of those pieces of trash? Don't even think about it. Chapter 181, Dragon is about to leave the Marines. Garp's resolute refusal echoed through the meeting room. Kong, however, was not surprised in the least, not even batting an eyelid. Everyone in Marineford knew what kind of temper this old bastard had. You don't need to worry about the Celestial Dragon's problem, Kong said. I've already received news. The 5 elders have issued a house arrest order for all Celestial Dragons. From now on, only Celestial Dragons with special permission will be allowed to leave Mary Jo eyes. So, even if you wanted to wipe their asses, you wouldn't be able to find them. Dragon listened with a dark expression as the dignified fleet admiral spoke such crude words. However, he wasn't surprised at all about his father's promotion to Marine Admiral. Having just finished reading the document about the military reform, he had already vaguely sensed these matters. Fleet Admiral Khan was promoted to Minister of the Command Department, Admiral Sengoku was promoted to Fleet Admiral, Teacher Zephyr was promoted to Minister of the Military and Political Department, Vice Admiral Tsuru was promoted to Minister of the Staff Department and to Admiral rank. So, who would become a Marine Admiral? He knew very well that Sakazuki, Borsellino, Kyuzen, and even himself, were still visibly short of reaching the level of top-tier combatants. So, under the rule that there must be at least one Marine Admiral, there was simply no other candidate besides the Marine hero, Monkey D. Garp. What? Those trash have been locked up? Garp was startled upon hearing this. Upon realizing this, he quickly shook his head. No, that's not right. You just said that some celestial dragons can still come out. If they cause trouble, won't I still have to wipe their asses for them? Bang, Kong slammed the meeting table fiercely and roared in anger. Where do you get so much nonsense from? It's like being an admiral is a grievance for you. This old man is telling you clearly, this time you have no room to refuse. Whether you agree or not, you will be a Marine Admiral from now on. This matter will be announced to the entire world immediately. Anyway, I'm not doing it. Whoever wants to be this admiral can be it. If you want me to wipe the asses of those trash, you can forget about it. Garp also got angry. In his fury, he didn't care if the other person was the fleet admiral. Garp. Kong also suddenly stood up, an astonishing aura erupting from his entire body. His fierce gaze clashed intensely midair with Garp's equally unyielding gaze. Even though neither side deliberately released haki, the mental fluctuation emanating from their motions caused the large meeting table nearby to start trembling, as if Manafort had been hit by an earthquake. Dragon, sitting opposite them, watched the two big shots confront each other speechlessly. To be honest, only he could handle this. If it were an ordinary vice admiral, they would be sweating profusely even if they didn't faint, desperately trying to keep their dizzying minds from giving out. Father, if you don't become an admiral, then who will? If no one becomes an admiral, then Admiral Sengoku won't be able to be promoted to Fleet Admiral. Are you going to drag your old friend down and stop him from advancing further? Oh, right, if no one takes the admiral position, then this reform cannot proceed either. Vice Admiral Tsuru also cannot be promoted to Minister of the Staff Department and Admiral rank. As soon as these three seemingly light sentences were spoken, Garp's expression froze, and the aura around him instantly dissipated. Kong also took the opportunity to withdraw his aura and sat back down in his chair, simultaneously giving Dragon a look of appreciation in his gaze. This is my own matter, how did it get related to Sengoku and Dragon shook his head and said. But the current situation is that your promotion is indeed directly related to Admiral Sengoku's and Vice Admiral Tsuru's path to promotion. As for those three admiral candidates, you should also know that they are not yet suitable to serve as Marine admirals. At least, it definitely won't be possible within the next few years. This time, Garp was completely dumbfounded, standing there somewhat at a loss. He hadn't expected to be cornered by his own son. This brat. The key was that he wasn't the kind of bastard who could say things like he didn't care about Sengoku and Tsuru. Furthermore, after becoming a Marine Admiral, even if some celestial dragon causes trouble in the future, you can completely ignore it. Can the world government really remove you? Even if they did, wouldn't that just be exactly what you wanted? Dragon continued. This. Garp stared, dumbfounded, while also thinking to himself. That's right, this old man can just ignore it. Who can force me? However, Kong, who was beside them, was a bit speechless at Dragon's words. Was it appropriate to say that in front of him? But for some reason, this Fleet Admiral, the future Minister of the Command Department, chose to remain silent at this moment. He simply pretended he hadn't heard anything. The most crucial point is, if you truly refuse the Admiral position entirely, the world government can completely prohibit you from going to other worlds. I assume you cannot accept that kind of punishment, right? Of course not. Garp roared. Immediately after, he fell silent, standing there caught in a dilemma. Dragon also stopped speaking, and together with Kong, they quietly waited for his decision. A moment later, a long sigh was heard. All right then, this old man will be this admiral. But I stand by what I said, don't come looking for me for celestial dragon matters. After speaking, Garp turned around with a dark face, about to leave the meeting room. Wait a minute, the matter isn't finished yet. Don't you want to hear about the arrangement for Dragon afterwards? Kong's voice came from behind him, successfully stopping Garp in his tracks. He turned back and sat down, glaring fiercely at his son with annoyance, and snorted coldly. What else is this brat up to? I still need to take him for a long overdue fatherly love special training. Dragon's eye twitched upon hearing that. Take a look. At this moment, Fleet Admiral Kong pushed the remaining document in front of Dragon. The latter, under his father's angry glare, reluctantly picked it up and read through a few parts. But as he read, He became engrossed in the content. Military-police separation. Reform of the judiciary, adding the Ministry of Police Affairs. Public Security Department, Military Police Bureau, Police Station. Dragon was different from his father Garp and his future son Luffy. He was someone who liked to think. At this moment, the more he looked at this reform plan, the more he felt that military-police separation was a benevolent governance. He had previously felt that the Marines' scope of authority was a bit too broad. Basically, anything related to crime was managed by the Marines. The emergence of the Ministry of Police Affairs will completely limit the Marines' authority to the ocean. However, it also deprives all affiliated countries of their public order authority and judicial power. The difficulty is not small. Just as Dragon was thinking for a while, Kong revealed a gentle smile and asked, "How about it? Are you willing to be the first minister of the Ministry of Police Affairs? Although it doesn't belong to the military and doesn't have an admiral rank, in terms of rank and as the supreme leader of the judiciary's police force, it's actually equivalent to a fleet admiral." Dragon thought for a moment. Just as he was about to answer, Garp on the other side shouted out, asking in shock. "What Ministry of Police Affairs? What doesn't belong to the military? You're going to transfer Dragon out of the Marines?" He had always trained this son as an excellent Marine since he was young. In his heart, he definitely had to be a Marine admiral in the future. But now, hearing Fleet Admiral Kong's words, it meant Dragon wouldn't be a Marine anymore. However, Kong didn't pay attention to Garp's attitude. Instead, he looked at Dragon seriously and asked, "What is your decision?" "I am willing to be this minister of the Ministry of Police Affairs. From the perspective of the overall situation of the world, this is a good thing. However, I would like to first meet the candidate recommended above for the Military Police Bureau Chief." Dragon picked up the document, flipped to the last page, narrowed his eyes, and softly said, "Bartholomew Kuma? Chapter 182, Kuma's value to the Ministry of Police Affairs." Dragon specifically mentioned wanting to meet Bartholomew Kuma because, according to this document, the Ministry of Police Affairs has 3 direct subordinate departments. First is the Public Security Department, responsible for managing police stations at all levels within the borders of the affiliated countries and related affairs in the future. Second is the Military Police Bureau, responsible for organizing elite police officers to deal with dangerous criminals that ordinary police officers in various police stations cannot handle. Third is the Bounty Research Department, responsible for discussing, deciding, and issuing bounty amounts and wanted posters. Among these 3 departments, there's nothing much to say about the Public Security Department, it's just an administrative department. The Bounty Research Department originally belonged to Marine Headquarters and has now been transferred to the Judiciary. The key is the Military Police Bureau. It has the fewest personnel but must possess sufficiently strong combat power. Otherwise, leaving land-based criminals to the police would be a joke, and they might even have to request high-level combat power support from the Marines. Besides the necessary combat power, it must also have high-speed support capability. If a major dangerous criminal appears in an affiliated country, they must ensure timely arrival. Based on these 2 requirements, the big boss behind the scenes immediately thought of Bartholomew Kuma. Although he is still very young and his ability hasn't awakened yet, the Ministry of Police Affairs is only just beginning to be established, so there's plenty of time for him to grow. Just think, when Kuma awakens in the future, no matter which affiliated country or island has a target that needs to be dealt with, he just needs to take the intelligence that's sent over and send the elite military police with suitable compatibility over with a slap. For this purpose, the second document in Dragon's hand also spoiled Bartholomew Kuma's various abilities in the future, in the form of record data from the previous Pansha system Pawpaw Fruit ability user. In addition, there was detailed files on Bartholomew Kuma himself, including even an analysis of his personality. Go to the Sorbet Kingdom in the South Blue yourself and meet him. Persuade him while you're at it. Kong said. Dragon asked. But since he is a king of an affiliated country, can he serve as an official of the world government? This old man remembers there's no regulation regarding this. Primarily, there haven't been such examples before. Since there's no regulation, it's not a problem. At most, you can try to have this Bartholomew Kuma step down from his position as king. I think he should understand the significance of joining the Ministry of Police Affairs. Hearing Fleet Admiral Kong's words, Dragon nodded thoughtfully and asked again. What about the Sabati Archipelago? The Fishman Safety Zone has just achieved stability, we can't let it become chaotic again. Fleet Admiral Kong smiled. According to the reform plan, except for keeping the necessary marine branches as maintenance bases for the various marine ships, all other island branches will be converted into police stations. You can completely convert the marine branch on the Sabati Archipelago into a branch of your Ministry of Police Affairs, or even its headquarters. It's just a matter of changing uniforms and repainting it. Kong was in a good mood now. After all, He had been confirmed for promotion to Minister of the Command Department, so his vision and scope had also risen considerably. If he were still the Fleet Admiral, doing something like poaching from the Marines would likely not be a pleasant experience. That's a good idea, but I want to take some people with me. Is that all right? Dragon asked. Who do you want to take? Fleet Admiral Kong didn't mind. The Ministry of Police Affairs was going to take a lot of people from the Marines. The first batch alone would be 10,000 from headquarters, and there would definitely be more later. It wouldn't be wrong to say they were poaching branch by branch, so he didn't care about 1 or 2 extra people. The black cat, 3-legged cat, and the white cat fishing little cat that I brought from the South Blue. These 2 animal system cat fruit ability users feel very suitable to be military police. Also, that special Paransha type gummy fruit ability user, Gasperty. His ability is perfect for capturing criminals alive, and he's also a good prospect for the military police. Dragon didn't stand on ceremony and listed the people he wanted one by one. He even mentioned the names of several Marine officers like Rear Admiral Avane and Rear Admiral Onigamo. Hearing this, Kong's face grew darker and darker. Stop, stop, stop. Among the manpower you mentioned, this old man can only approve those 2 cats for you. But for the others, you kids should go find Sengoku. Dragon shook his head helplessly, thinking to himself, persuading Admiral Sengoku would be too difficult. Wait. Just then, Garp, who had been listening to their dialogue for a while, understood what was happening. With a dark face, he glared angrily at Fleet Admiral Kong and said, "This kid being transferred from the Marines to that Ministry of Police Affairs thing, I, as his father, haven't agreed to it yet. The world government ordered it, and Dragon himself agreed. What's there for you to agree or not agree to?" Kong asked, looking at him strangely. Slap, Garp slammed the meeting table and roared. "To make this kid an excellent Marine warrior, I've been training him since he was little. Now that he's finally grown up, you want to kick him out of the Marines? Dream on." Kong frowned and said displeasingly, "It's not kicking him out of the Marines. It's just that the Ministry of Police Affairs really needs Dragon to take charge. This is called rational allocation and utilization of talent." Garp looked over with a stern face. "Humphrey, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Isn't it just that the Marine Admiral establishment is full, there's no position for this kid, so you're thinking of transferring him elsewhere? Nonsense." Kong was furious and also slammed the tabletop with a bang, even leaving a clear palm print dent on it. "Bastard Garp. This old man is telling you now, Sakazuki has been transferred to Army headquarters. He is now an Army Admiral candidate, and before long, he will be a true Army Admiral." "What?" Garp and Dragon were immediately stunned by this news. The former even exclaimed in surprise and suspicion. With that magma brat's hatred for pirates, how could he possibly agree to leave the Marine troops? Kong looked at him coldly. "Whether it's possible or not, you don't need to know. Anyway, this is the fact. This old man is telling you that Dragon wasn't transferred to the Ministry of Police Affairs because the Marines were full, but because they genuinely need him to take charge over there. Do you understand?" Garp was speechless. Even Sakazuki was transferred from the Marines to the Army, so transferring Dragon to that Ministry of Police Affairs didn't seem so strange anymore. But he still felt uncomfortable. "All right, everything that needed to be said has been said. You can leave. Dragon, find some time to report in at the judiciary. They will discuss the relevant details with you further," Kong said, waving his hand, feeling a bit weary. "Okay." Dragon nodded, then stood up, transformed into a whirlwind, burst open the gate of the meeting room, and quickly disappeared without a trace. This scene made the veins on Garp's forehead pop, and his 2 huge fists clenched, grinding with a creaking sound. This brat, running quite fast, huh? After speaking, he was about to turn around and chase after him. Today, he definitely had to drag Dragon for a session of love training. But just then, Fleet Admiral Kong's voice came from behind him again. "Come to this old man's office at 8 o'clock later. Before this old man leaves the Marines. I want to see what you, this bastard, look like wearing an admiral's coat." Garp froze there completely, but immediately disappeared from the meeting room without giving any response. Only Fleet Admiral Kong's gloating, hearty laughter echoed in his ears. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 183, Special Resources of the Kubanrai World. Mary Joyce, Room of Authority. As Senior Director Addison reported the progress in the Kubanrai world, the 5 elders gathered once again to discuss the upcoming matter. "Let's first talk about the special resource discovered in this world so far," said St. Topman Warkery, the head of the Political Affairs Department, taking the lead. St. Marcus Mars, in charge of the Academy of Science, nodded. "First and foremost, it's definitely the Kubanrai heart membrane. According to the files reported by the Materials Research Institute, this material varies in thickness from 6 to 12 millimeters depending on the infected's physique, but its strength is equivalent to steel plate 3 to 10 centimeters thick. It possesses properties such as light transmission, adhesion, blood absorption, and high temperature resistance. Light transmission means that most of the membrane is transparent, but it also has blood vessel veins attached. They tried removing these blood vessels, but found that doing so caused the membrane to quickly turn into a regular transparent fleshy membrane, losing all strength and properties. This shows that the Guibaneri virus within plays a crucial role. Adhesion means it can stick to the surface of any object, achieving a state where they become indistinguishable after about 2 hours. However, this also means it cannot be reused. Blood absorption means it needs to be fed blood regularly. Animal blood works too, to maintain a certain level of activity. Otherwise, it will starve to death, meaning it will rot. High temperature resistance is easier to understand. The Guibaneri virus itself thrives in high temperature liquid environments, and the membrane itself is a product of high temperature. After listening, Saint Ethenborough Venusjiro glanced at the Shodai Kaitetsu in his arms, adjusted the round glasses on his nose, and said, "It sounds very suitable as a reinforcement material for a blade." Exactly. St. Marcus Mars nodded and smiled. The Materials Research Institute also mentioned this point. Based on the finished product Mima Amatori has, they found that simply attaching a layer of Guibaneri heart membrane can give a blade with extremely ordinary, even describable as inferior, craftsmanship a strength close to a good sharp sword, enough to easily pierce through 2 to 3 layers of the membrane stacked together. The most astonishing thing is that even if its epidermis is damaged, it can slowly heal automatically just by applying some blood. Hearing this, not only St. Jaga Ursha Saturn, but also the other 3 raised their eyebrows, their interest greatly piqued. Doesn't that mean that as long as there's enough Guibaneri heart membrane, we can have as many good sharp swords with self-healing blood absorption as there are ordinary weapon? St. Jaga Ursha Saturn said in surprise. St. Marcus Mars agreed. You could say that. By attaching a few more layers, we can even create weapon comparable to supreme grade sharp sword, considering this material is only a few millimeters thick. Furthermore, according to the Materials Research Institute's ideas, it can be used not only for blade but also for our warship, vehicle, building, and even clothing and armor. Because its essence is still a biological membrane, it has excellent plasticity. Hearing this, even St. Marcus Mars himself showed a hint of excitement. The other 4 present exchanged glances, seeing the surprise and greed in each other's eyes. They originally thought that the Guibaneri world had no high-level combat power and that even the total cell count in the human body was so much lower, so they believed the people of this world could only plant grain, raise animals, and so on. But now it seems that the people of this Guibaneri world themselves have great value. Most importantly, this extremely convenient reinforcement material can be considered both a renewable resource and a non-renewable resource. This depends on the perspective we take. The 5 elders present naturally understood the profound meaning behind St. Marcus Mars's words. From a humanitarian perspective, intentionally using them as a renewable resource for regeneration would undoubtedly be utterly evil, a heinous crime, an act against humanity. But from the perspective of value and profit, giving up on using these Guibaneri heart membrane would truly be a great pity. Such excellent supernatural material, just sitting there to be ignored? How could that be possible? Ahem, let's not talk about this for now. Is there anything else? St. Topman Warcurry quickly changed the subject. Some matter was understood implicitly by everyone and could be carried out silently for now. They would be discussed when the time was right. There is another special resource, which is the technology they call the Mclacky engine. It is said to be a high-pressure steam boiler invented by a British scientist named Mclacky from the European continent, using the steam compression technique. It not only provides high-output kinetic energy for heavy iron armor train but can also be miniaturized for personal carry to power steam gun. According to the inspection report from Yashiro Station, they even used it to power super-large crane, lifting the excavated iron ore onto train with extremely high efficiency, then transporting it to the shogunate's capital, Kongakaku. From there, it is distributed to the station in various places across Hinamoto. St. Topman Warcurry's eyes lit up, and he quickly asked, "Has Dr. Vegapunk seen this thing?" The small high-pressure boilers carried by those soldiers have already been sent to Punk Hazard, but the large high-pressure boilers on the iron-armored train haven't been disassembled yet. As for the design blueprint for this boiler, it hasn't been found yet. According to the chief steward captured by Crocodile, both the manufacturing of Station City and steam gun is centrally handled by the shogunate, so the relevant blueprints should be inside Kongakaku, including the world map we need. St. Marcus Mars paused, took a sip of hot black tea to moisten his throat, and continued. Although there are no blueprints, Dr. Vegapunk still took an hour to understand the principle of this high-pressure steam boiler by disassembling it. What did he say? Saint Shepherd Jupiter pressed. Dr. Vegapunk's meaning is that by building high-compression steam factory on a sufficient scale and in sufficient quantity, combined with a suitable seawater impurity filter, we can produce a continuous supply of high-compression steam. Then, by installing Clacky engine on warship or sea train, we can provide them with long-lasting clean energy through the extremely convenient method of gas tank swapping. Also, the impurities filtered from high-compression seawater can be put through an additional screening process to extract sea stone crystal from them. This is a technology perfectly suited for our world, where 90% is Great Sea. At this point, St. Marcus Mars was visibly excited, his body trembling slightly. As the ruling class of the world, he understood perfectly what sufficient clean energy represented, and what enough sea stone represented. What are we waiting for then? St. Jaga Ursha Saturn straightened up, his gaze becoming sharp. He said heavily. This old man will immediately issue an order to the army headquarters. Have Bullet and Crocodile there immediately suppress the so-called shogunate capital, Kongakaku. Regarding the attitude of this shogunate and the Amatori family, that is actually something that needs to be discussed at this meeting. St. Topman Warcurry said in a deep voice, interlocking his fingers. First, should we continue to let this Amatori family serve as the shogun of the shogunate, or should we replace them and support a new shogun? Second, after conquering this nation, should we grant them the status of affiliated countries? Also, should we approve Dr. Shawai's application to join the Biochemical Research Institute, and how should we make arrangement for the abandoned son of the shogun, Mima Amatori? Chapter 184, Great Commotion in the Land of the Gods. Clang, with a crisp metallic clash, the two blades touched and separated instantly. Mihawk returned the long saber in his hand, which was exquisitely crafted but couldn't be called a good sharp sword, to its scabbard. That's enough for today. Your swordsmanship is improving very quickly. Hey. Hey. Shanks leaned on his bent knees with both hands, panting as he laughed. That's all thanks to having a good opponent like you. It's also fortunate to have you, otherwise, I wouldn't be able to live in this place. This is just compensation for you telling me about the Roger Pirates' experiences. Your matter truly broadened my perspective. As he spoke, Mihawk placed the ordinary long saber back on the sword stand. He had been living a very regular life recently. In the morning, he would have a warm-up sparring session with Dian in the social plaza of Pangaea Castle. At noon, he would come to the land of the gods to have a teaching sparring session with Shanks. In the evening, he would receive swordsmanship training from Lord Imu in the Room of Authority. It could be said that he was the freest person in this holy land, truly able to go wherever he pleased. But Mihawk also knew deeply that the reason he received such treatment was entirely due to Lord Imu's special care. For this, he was sincerely grateful from the bottom of his heart. Wah 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 wah. No. I don't want to go with you. Let go of me. You, father. Mother. Save me. At this moment, extremely noisy cries of child came from outside the manor, followed by angry, yet arrogant, adult voices questioning. What are you lowly holy guard doing? Let go of my child. Rebellion. Rebellion. Are you bastards trying to rebel? Cypher Paul. Kill them for this palace, quickly. As soon as Shanks heard the sharp female voice, he knew it was Figrland. It was said that according to the sacred register, she was his aunt, but she strongly disliked him, this wild child. She had only met him once and never paid him any attention again. What's happening? Mihawk calmly and softly narrated. Nothing much. It's just that the 5 elders have issued an order. All children of the celestial dragons between the ages of 6 and 15 must go to the newly established Celestial Dragon Holy Palace for concentrated learning of theoretical knowledge and physical training. When they turn 15, they will face an assessment. Those who passed the assessment can continue to receive 3 years of high-rank training. At 18, they will face their first graduation exam. After passing, they will be given the title of Elite, which grants them the privilege to freely enter and exit Mary Joais. As for those who fail, they will have another chance at the graduation exam at 19 and 20. But if they fail the 3rd exam as well, they will be brought back to the land of the gods, which is here, to spend the rest of their lives. Shanks was completely stunned, his mouth agape, unsure what to say. After a moment, he hesitantly said. That. I think I'm also 15, could it be? You won't be taken to the Celestial Dragon Holy Palace. Mihawk looked at Shanks with pity in his eyes. They probably think you no longer have value for cultivation, so you won't be able to leave this place in this lifetime. What? Shanks's mood was very complicated upon hearing this. He didn't know whether he should be happy, disappointed, or angry. But he wasn't stupid and understood what no value for cultivation meant. It definitely meant that his thought had no possibility of changing. Perhaps, When you completely accept your celestial dragon's bloodline someday, you will have a chance to be heavily favored by Lord. After all, your swordsmanship talent is truly excellent. Mihawk shook head and turned to leave the lush green open space of the manor. At the same time, in the land of the gods, this residential area exclusive to the celestial dragons, there was utter chaos. Cries and curses filled the air everywhere. But even so, no one could stop the Holy Land garrison from taking away boy after boy and girl after girl. These celestial dragons from the major clans truly never dreamed that the soldiers who had always been obedient to them would dare to do such an outrageous matter. And the surrounding Cypher Paul members stood there motionless, turning a blind eye to it. This was simply because these Holy Land garrison soldiers carried the order of the 5 elders. No, we must talk to the 5 elders. An elderly celestial dragon shouted angrily. It's bad enough that they've confined us here, but they even want to snatch our child. This is preposterous. Right. We must stop them from continuing to act so recklessly. Replace them. Replace the 5 elders. Celestial dragons with Saint or Palace after their surnames had faces full of rage. They began to gather in groups and walk towards the gate at the entrance of the land of the gods. However, this place was already guarded by large teams of Holy Land garrison soldiers, who directly blocked these high and mighty world nobles. Get out of the way for this saint. We're going to Pangaea Castle to see the 5 elders. That's right, all of you get out of the way. But the Holy Land garrison warrior just stood there quietly. Because they were wearing full sets of armor, their expression couldn't be seen at all. Move aside. Suddenly, a rather authoritative voice sounded. As soon as the words fell, all the Holy Land garrison soldiers blocking the way quickly scattered to both sides. Soon, the agitated celestial dragon saw a tall man covered in golden armor and wearing a white cloak walk over. This person was none other than the current commander of the Holy Land garrison. Zhang Shao? Have you forgotten your identity? Zhang Shao calmly looked at the leading current Rosward family head, old Rosward Saint, and said in a deep voice. This subordinate only acts according to the order of the 5 elders. Regarding the esteemed world nobles, the 5 elders previously issued an order, stating that any celestial dragons who leave the land of the gods without authorization will have their identity as celestial dragons, qualifications, and all privilege revoked. I believe you Lord haven't forgotten, have you? This. The celestial dragons exchanged glances, their faces showing hesitation. Zhang Shao continued. So, by having them guard the gate, I was actually trying to give you Lord a chance to calm down. With that, he raised his hand and issued an order to all the Holy Land garrison present. Open the gate. The next moment, under the operation of several warrior, the massive iron door slowly lifted upwards, revealing the wide passage to all the celestial dragons. Anyone willing to risk losing their identity as celestial dragons, feel free to leave. But whether you can return after going out is unknown. At this, the celestial dragons fell silent. Everyone looked at the ground tiles outside the gate with pale faces. They didn't understand why the place they used to enter and exit freely had suddenly become so terrifying. Humphrey. At this moment, the old Rosward Saint heavily struck the ground with his luxurious cane and angrily said, I'd like to see if the 5 elders dare to strip this old man of his qualifications. With that, he immediately stepped forward and walked out of the land of the gods gate under everyone's gaze. The next moment, 3 whooshing sounds of air breaking rang out. 3 men in black instantly appeared beside the Rosward family head. The man in black facing the latter directly announced coldly. Rosward Kyle Ranfu, according to the highest order of the 5 elders, you are no longer one of the world nobles. The Rosward family head identity will be taken over by Rosward Gilead Saint. Next, you will be taken to the Holy Land prison by us. Are you prepared to come with us yourself, or shall we take you? Above Pangaea Castle, Im sat high up under the moonlight, his cold ripple eyes looking down at the little reader. At this moment, an extremely arrogant voice rippled out like water waves in the main hall. The 28th, 29th, and 30th are double monthly pass days. It's time for you to hand over your heavenly tribute. Chapter 185, The Principal Assistant of the Celestial Dragon Holy Palace. Red Line, RLO003 District. This is a freezing cold winter zone, where snowflakes dance in the sky almost constantly, covering the ground with layers of shimmering white blankets. But even in such a place, the construction department built a decent-looking academy campus with remarkable speed. This campus was centered around the magnificent 20-story castle, with various smaller stone buildings distributed around it, each serving a different function. Even the wide ground covered in white snow, if gently wiped away, would reveal perfectly smooth stone slabs underneath with no visible seams, as if it were originally a single, complete, massive stone slab. It's hard to imagine how the construction department managed to complete such a large construction project in such a short time, especially with an extreme shortage of manpower. Let go. Let go of me. You lowly servants. Wah, I want mommy, mommy where are you? Woo wah woo, it's so cold here, I don't want to be here. At this time, children, who had been forcibly dressed in thick winter clothes, were brought by the Holy Land garrison to the open space in front of the castle. Although crystal clear snowflakes were still falling from the sky, this area had clearly been cleaned beforehand, so there wasn't much snow accumulation on the stone slabs. After gathering the children from the major celestial dragon clans together, these warriors wearing cold armor quickly dispersed to the surroundings, turning into silent sculptures guarding the area quietly. However, the children were still crying and making a fuss. Some youths, around 14 or 15 years old, even showed ferocious expressions that made even adults uncomfortable. They seemed to have endless rage they wanted to vent. Didn't you hear me? Who do you think I am? I'll sentence all of you to death. Ah, let me go back. From a window on the 5th floor of the Celestial Dragon Castle, the golden-haired girly-haired youth, standing behind a silver-haired elder, watched the terrifying posture below and showed a complex gaze filled with lingering fear. They remind me of that person. Our future work is to prevent these children from becoming like this, isn't it? The elder chuckled gently and warmly. However, the youth hesitated, lacking confidence in his words. Can I really do it? And how? As you know, I'm about the same age as them. Accompany them with your kindness, and influence most of them. As for the remaining small portion, you can give up on them. After all, we can't educate every single child. The youth fell silent for a moment after hearing this. Looking at the children outside the window, he asked again. Aren't we going down? Let's wait a bit longer, be patient. Right now, no matter what we say to them, they won't listen. The silver-haired elder said with a smile, his hands clasped behind his back. Indeed, just as he said, the nearly 100 children outside the castle, as the cold wind continued to blow, gradually lost the strength to make noise. They huddled together, tightly clutching their winter clothes and shivering. No one was crying anymore, no one was cursing anymore, returning quietness to this campus in the wind and snow. It's time. Seeing this, the silver-haired elder smiled slightly, turned around, and headed towards the stairs downstairs. The youth with a head of golden curly hair followed closely behind. Soon, under the gaze of all the children, the two slowly walked out from the depths of the castle gate and stood one after another on the stairway. The next moment, the silver-haired elder spoke with full spirit. This is the Celestial Dragon Holy Palace. It is the academy where you will stay until you are 18, 19, or 20 years old. Of course, some lucky ones might only need to stay until they are 15 before they can return. Within 3 months, you cannot contact your family. But after 3 months, you will have one opportunity each month to apply for leave to go home, with each leave period lasting 7 days. Here, you will receive comprehensive training in physiology, psychology, knowledge, physical ability, thought, etiquette, and a sense of responsibility as nobility. You must work hard here to become true nobility worthy of the identity of world noble. All the Celestial Dragon's children were silent. Perhaps it was because of the cold weather, or perhaps it was because the overbearing spirit emanating from the silver-haired elder made people instinctively dare not interrupt, but they were ultimately listening attentively, even though many of them still couldn't understand these things. Starting tomorrow, you will wake up and wash at 7 in the morning every day, undergo physical ability training at 8, and begin studying theoretical courses such as English language, language, mathematics, philosophy, agronomy, navigation, geography, music, and medicine at 9. In the afternoon, you will study sports courses such as swordsmanship, boxing, shooting, and tennis ball, and then go to bed promptly at 9 in the evening. Speaking of this, the elder paused for a moment, giving these children time to process. He seemed completely unconcerned about whether these young or adolescent children would get sick in such cold weather. Because people in the Sea Star world, even a child, are not so easy to get sick. Now, boys in one team, girls in one team. The younger ones stand at the front, and among those of the same age, the shorter ones stand at the front. Line up properly, and you can come in for a hot bath, change into new school uniforms, and then go to the cafeteria for a hearty lunch. As soon as the silver-haired elder finished speaking, the eyes of all the children in the court lit up. Already suffering from hunger and cold, they no longer cared about being angry or wronged and began to divide into 2 teams at the fastest speed. This scene made the golden-haired girly-haired youth on the stairway speechless for a moment, thinking to himself, I misunderstood. Compared to that person, these children are truly just a bunch of children. This made him look at the elders back in front of him with admiration. As expected of the current family head of Dracul, he's doing such a good job even as a principal. Come in. I will be waiting for you in the cafeteria. I hope to see your brand new appearance. During this time, if anyone causes trouble, Today's lunch and dinner will be cancelled." After speaking, the silver-haired elder turned and walked into the castle. The golden-haired girly-haired youth followed again, arriving at the third floor of the castle. This entire floor was the cafeteria and kitchen, equipped with 4 extra-long stone tables, completely sufficient to accommodate hundreds of people dining together at the same time. At this time, attendants had already begun serving the delicious food dishes prepared by the chefs onto one of the stone tables. For drinks, milk, juice, coffee, black tea, matcha, and green tea were all available, but there was no alcohol. Looking at these, Rosinant fell into memories for a moment. A week ago, he was called from the Marine Headquarters School to Admiral Sengoku's office. A government official who claimed to be from the Holy Affairs Department was already waiting for him there. Subsequently, he was informed that his identity and qualification as a world noble celestial dragon had been restored, and he was required to return to Holy Land Mari-Ejos to serve as the principal assistant of the Celestial Dragon Holy Palace. To be honest, he was full of question marks throughout this entire process, even up to now. Firstly, how was his celestial dragon identity restored, who restored it, and why was it restored? Secondly, why was he asked to be the principal assistant? Also, he clearly remembered that he had been hiding his identity, so how did the world government know about him? Rosinant later asked Sengoku, who was like a foster father to him, but the latter also stated that he was not the one who revealed it, which was too strange. But after coming here and having communication with his silver-haired elder, he found that he didn't dislike this work. Instead, he felt it was very meaningful. "I absolutely cannot let them become as terrible as my brother." Rosinant's gaze gradually became firm. He felt that he had found a cause worth fighting for his entire life, just as the elder had said before, to make the future celestial dragons worthy of being world noble. Chapter 186, Dr. Shawai's Bold Idea. Inside the Shishikari base at one end of the number 0001 Kabinarai world, Dr. Shawai and Mima Amatori arrived here yesterday afternoon. As soon as they got off the vehicle, they were taken to the zone belonging to the Biochemical Research Institute, but the treatment they received was vastly different. Dr. Shawai was invited to the dean's office to meet with Dr. Fritz, while Mima Amatori, Mumai, and Ikuma were locked in the same prison cell. Meko, who had manifested as Anu, was locked up alone, but right next to her was the Blue Heart Cabane, personally named by Dr. Fritz. "Damn it, who exactly are they? Why are they locking us up?" The red-clothed girl, Mumai, complained angrily, looking at the corridor outside the prison cell. "Didn't they say? It's because we're Kabinarai." Ikuma leaned against the wall and looked at her helplessly. "You've already seen their strength. We can only wait for their decision now." Although he said that, his eyes still held clear unwillingness, especially when looking at his empty hands, which reminded him of the confiscated piercing gun. "They should be an influence from overseas." Mima Amatori, who was standing nearby, said softly at this moment. Mumai turned around and looked at him with a complex gaze, asking in a low voice, "Elder brother, why did you lie to me? You lied that you were going to Konigakaku just to see Father Lord." "I didn't lie to you." Mima Amatori looked at her expressionlessly. "I was indeed going to see Father, but after meeting him, I would destroy him along with Kongokaku. This is revenge, for myself and for the 400,000 troops from 10 years ago. But what's the use of saying all this now? Yes, they had all become prisoners. It was possible they would be taken away as experimental materials. What was the point of talking about these grudges now? The three of them fell silent. At the same time, Dr. Fritz was leading Dr. Shawai to the outside of the Blue Heart Cabane's prison cell. Steve Gus and 4 Cypher Pol 7 agent members were following beside them. "You actually injected the heart blood from the black smoke core directly into his body and successfully turned him into a perfect new." After listening to the former's introduction and looking at the blue heart inside, Zhuang Wei cried out in disbelief. "How is this possible? The blood inside the black smoke core, whether it's the high temperature or the concentration of Kabinarai virus, is far higher than that of ordinary Kabane. No one can withstand such high temperature and painful stimulation. I've done this experiment before." Dr. Fritz smiled casually and said, "So you changed to injecting the blood of ordinary Kabane into humans, and then blocking the flow in the left carotid artery, creating Kabinarai like Mima Amatori?" "Exactly. Although the success rate of my method isn't high, I can guarantee at least 2 successes out of 10 women," Dr. Shawai said with a hint of pride. "Why does it have to be women?" "Because experiments have proven that women's endurance is far stronger than men's. To become a Kabinarai, one must persevere until the blood exchange is complete. This is an extremely painful process." Hearing Dr. Shawai's words, Steve Gus grinned and said, "That feeling is indeed intense, like hot water flowing in your blood vessels. But it can't be that only women can do it, right? Or are the men in your world all that useless?" "Our world. When Dr. Shawai heard this, he immediately realized that these people were from another world. Yes, he had just learned the basic information about the world government in Dr. Fritz's office. To be honest, it was very hard to believe, but everything in front of him forced him to believe. Although Gus's words sound rough, they do make sense. If it were a C-star person, we probably wouldn't need to consider gender issues. Dr. Fritz said thoughtfully. However, according to Gus's description of that pain, it's true that not everyone can withstand the high-temperature burning of the blue heart. So, if we switch to the blood of ordinary Cabane, it should lower the difficulty of renovation into a Cabanerai. Strictly speaking, Steve Gus is also a Cabanerai. After all, the meaning of Cabanerai is an existence that is half human and half Cabane. It's just that he belongs to the advanced form of Cabanerai, which is the new. But what about the requirement for life return? Regarding the question raised by Gus, Dr. Fritz smiled and looked at Dr. Shawai beside him. Didn't I propose before using something like a collar to constrict the neck to prevent the Cabanerai virus from invading the brain through the left carotid artery? I just didn't expect this thing to have been developed by Dr. Shawai years ago. The latter nodded and took out something resembling a silk scarf from his inner pocket, introducing it. It's this. It's called a restraining scarf. It can block blood flow to a certain extent. What does to a certain extent mean? Dr. Shawai replied. It means that if the concentration of Cabanerai virus in the blood is too high, it will rupture. After Mima Amatori injected Meko with black blood, which enhances the effect of the Cabanerai virus, she turned into a new. However, because the restraining scarf was torn apart by the excessively strong virus concentration, the virus entered her brain, turning her into a true Cabane. Dr. Fritz thought for a moment and asked. So, the problem lies in the strength of the materials of your restraining scarf? You could say that. Dr. Shawai sighed. Then why don't you try attaching the Cabane's heart membrane to the restraining scarf? Dr. Fritz pressed. This. Dr. Shawai was stunned. He thought to himself, that's right, why didn't I think of that before? At this moment, an expression of shame and annoyance appeared on his face. It was the feeling of someone who considered himself smart realizing he had made a foolish mistake. Furthermore, besides the relatively comfortable restraining scarf you developed, I saw that the Cabanerai named Ikema was wearing a metal collar around his neck. Dr. Fritz said. Dr. Shawai shook head. That's useless. A metal collar also cannot withstand the Cabanerai virus enhanced by black blood. I've done experiments on this before. In fact, the strength of metal collars and this silk-type restraining scarf are about the same. However, what you just said about reinforcing the restraining scarf with a Cabane's heart membrane, I think the feasibility is very high. Dr. Fritz nodded. He was already aware of the black blood that the other party had mentioned several times. This is a virus-enhancing agent made by Dr. Shawai using the heart blood of the blue heart Cabane as the main materials, supplemented with other creature materials. It can turn ordinary Cabanerai into new form Cabanerai. He also has an antidote serum called white serum. It can significantly reduce the concentration of the Cabanerai virus. If injected into a new form Cabanerai, it can turn them back into ordinary Cabanerai. If injected into an ordinary Cabanerai, there is a 50 to 60% chance of turning them back into ordinary people. It was also because of these two inventions that Dr. Fritz valued Dr. Shawai's talent in biochemical virus and agreed to apply for the qualification of junior researcher at the Biochemical Research Institute for him. At this moment. Hey, what do you think would happen if we injected this blue heart Cabane inside with my black blood? Dr. Shawai surprisingly proposed two bold ideas. Or what would happen if we injected Mr. Steve Gus with my black blood? Would they turn into the same form, or would there be a difference? Thank you very much to the reader Ruizy Bai for the 500 kitty and coin tip. Those thank you for your support and encouragement. The double monthly pass event has started. Handsome great readers, monthly pass, monthly pass, monthly pass. The little author wants to get on the light novel monthly pass ranking again. With the help of Boss Longinus and Boss Kikyo before, I got to experience the feeling of being second place. Now I've dropped off the list. Woo 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 chapter 187, sorry, I don't want to kill. Are you Ikema? Inside the dark prison cell, as footsteps approached, a man in black came outside the prison cell and asked the gray-green-haired young man inside. Ikema and Yuma exchanged glances, nodded, and replied. That's me. Come out. Excuse me, where are we going? The man in black looked at him expressionlessly and said. Base Chief's office. Senior Director Addison wants to see you. All right then. Although surprised, Ikema nodded and walked out. Along the way, he patted Mumai's shoulder, signaling her not to worry. Only Mima Amatori frowned, lost in thought. Ikema. Mumai watched Ikema's retreating back, pressing her lips tightly together. She began to resent her own incompetence and weakness, thinking. Elder brother was right sometimes. If I were strong enough now, I could take them away from here. Following the man in black, Ikuma walked through the long dark corridor. As he exited the prison gate, a blinding sunlight shone down from the sky, forcing him to squint and adapt for a while. Along the way, he saw groups of army soldier and man in black who occasionally flashed past with afterimages. But what filled his sight the most were rows of exquisite wooden building and strange flag hanging from the rooftops. The flag had a white background with 5 black spheres arranged in the center, connected by one horizontal and one vertical line. What could that represent? Carrying this question, Ikuma was led to the tallest building in the center area. Then, in the office on the top floor, he met Senior Director Addison. "Please sit." Sitting behind the office desk, Addison showed him a friendly smile and asked, "Would you like something to drink? How about coffee? Oh, wait, you probably prefer tea, right?" This. Ikuma was a little nervous and was about to say no, but the former had already instructed the secretary outside. "Get him a cup of matcha." "Okay." This left Ikuma speechless for a moment. He found this person a bit too assertive. However, his attention quickly focused on the yellow object on the office desk. "This is..." Hey, that's right. "This is why I called you here. Can you tell me about it?" "My subordinates told me this thing has quite a bit of power. It can even penetrate 3 Cabane heart membranes stacked together." Senior Director Addison chuckled lightly, while inwardly complaining. "This power is already comparable to anti-materiel rifles. How can a steam gun be this outrageous?" Ikuma hesitated for a moment, then thought about it and said, "Because ordinary steam cylinder couldn't destroy the Cabane heart membrane, my friend Takumi and I developed this piercing gun which has greater penetration power and impact force." "Piercing gun?" "Yes. Actually, it's just a modified bullet for the steam gun. We discovered that when the shock wave from gunpowder explosion hits a metal plate, a metal jet phenomenon occurs. Based on this, I invented a special warhead that can produce a metal jet, which I call a jet bullet." As Ikuma spoke, his mood became excited, as if he was introducing his masterpiece to someone, and his voice gradually rose. "Because we are just station repair worker and couldn't get a real steam gun, I modified the rivet gun launcher to fire jet bullet, which I call the piercing gun." After listening, Senior Director Addison's gaze towards Ikuma changed. He no longer saw him as just an ordinary Kabanari experiment subject. "It seems you have quite a talent in weapon development, especially in bullet modification. Congratulations, you have proven your value. Now, please read this document." He took out a not-so-thick files from the drawer and placed it in front of Ikuma. The latter picked it up curiously and began to read. As he read, the expression of this world protagonist became increasingly shocked, and his pupils contracted violently. Another world. World government. To be honest, the content on it wasn't much, but even so, he read it several times. Senior Director Addison didn't rush him, quietly waiting for him to digest it. A moment later. "Excuse me, I'm finished reading." Ikuma put the document down, but his voice was still trembling. Addison looked at him in surprise. "You calm down so quickly? You really are research talent, it's just that your Kabanari body is a bit tricky. After all, the Academy of Science couldn't possibly accept a researcher who could potentially suck human blood at any time, could they?" Ikuma smiled bitterly. "I'm also trying to find a way to turn back into a human, and Mumai too." "You want to turn back into a normal human? Isn't a Superman body better?" Addison joked. "No, I just want to turn back into a human with Mumai, no matter what." Ikuma raised his head and said firmly. "That's not impossible. The key is whether you have the value." This meaningful sentence greatly surprised Ikuma, and he quickly asked. "You have a way to turn me back into a normal human?" "That's right, you're from another world, perhaps there's some special method." Senior Director Addison spread his palm and smiled. "You've misunderstood. Our world might also have a way, but the possibility I just mentioned is a product of your own world. It's just that it's now under our possession." "What?" Ikuma was startled. "Do you remember Dr. Shawai who came with you? The white serum he invented is a serum that can effectively clear the Kabanari virus. It is said that for ordinary Kabanari like you, one dose has a 50 to 60% chance of turning you completely back into a normal human. However, there are only 2 tubes of this stuff." Hearing this, Ikuma suddenly stood up, looking at Addison in surprise, and said, "Isn't that just enough for me and Mumai? Please, I beg you, please let us turn back into normal human." Saying this, he clasped his hands together and bowed deeply towards the latter with utmost sincerity. However, Senior Director Addison remained unmoved, looking at him calmly. "On what basis? Huh? Can you tell me why we should use the precious serum, of which there are only 2 tubes, on you?" This. Ikuma was speechless, and his mood became anxious. He quickly asked, "Is there anything I can do?" "That's right. Senior Director Addison nodded in satisfaction. Don't think about asking for something without giving anything in return. Instead, you should think about what you can use to get something. Please guide me. You certainly don't have anything to exchange for white serum right now, but you can work for us. For example, manufacturing the jet bullet you mentioned, and also modifying it so that general gunpowder firearms can use it, and even finding a way to produce large jet armor-piercing shell. Senior Director Addison opened up his mind and provided Ikema with directions for future research, which left the latter stunned. As long as you demonstrate sufficient value in this area, you will have the opportunity to apply to us for a white serum injection. Perhaps by then, the Biochemical Research Institute might even be able to mass-produce white serum. How about it, will you accept? But Ikema hesitated and asked. Then are the jet bullet I develop and the jet cannonball you just mentioned meant to be used against Cobain, or also used to kill people? Is there a difference? Senior Director Addison looked at him, puzzled. Sorry, I don't want to kill people, and I don't want the things I create to kill people. Ikema lowered his head, clenched his fists, gripped his pants tightly, and said through gritted teeth. However, as soon as he said this, the former's face turned cold. Oh, is that so? Then you can go back to the prison cell and think about it. Come back when you've figured it out. Chapter 188, Taking the Shogunate Too Seriously. Do you care about him a lot? Inside the prison cell, Mima Amatori watched Mumai, dressed in a beautiful red outfit, pacing back and forth anxiously. A subtle change occurred in his mood. In the past, the worship and concern in the eyes of this nominal younger sister were only directed at him, but at that time, he didn't care about these things because such gazes were commonplace around him. But now, he inexplicably felt a hint of loss. It was like the feeling when a younger sister, whom you watched grow up, suddenly finds a boy she likes and no longer acts spoiled around you. Although Ikema is a big idiot, clearly very weak, he always looks full of courage. But he is indeed a very special person. He even said he would turn me back into a human, so I could eat my fill of rice every day. Mumai stopped pacing and leaned against the ice-cold wall, looking down at her shoes and speaking softly. Elder brother, you lied to me. At first, I was very angry, but I thought about it. Except for not being clear about the purpose of going to Kongakaku, everything else you said was indeed the truth. You said that only the expert can survive, and I still think that's correct. Although Ikema never agreed with that, it's because he's too naive. Becoming a Kobanrai was also something I actively requested. Ultimately, I am very grateful for elder brother's upbringing. It's just that from now on, I don't want to be Mumai anymore. I want my original name, Hazumi, back. In the darkness of the prison cell, the little girl poured out her innermost thoughts. However, the way she kept her head lowered didn't match the firmness and confidence of her words. After all, elder brother's prestige in her heart still remained. Is that so? That's good. Elder brother? Mumai looked up in surprise at Mima Amatori, who was smiling at her. His attitude didn't seem as angry as she had imagined. Hazumi is a name full of beautiful expectations for the future, but for the past it was too weak. That's why I gave you the name Mumai. But now, whether it's your strength or your heart, you are strong enough. It's time to have expectations. Mima Amatori looked gently at the short red-clothed girl before him. Humans are not plants or trees, how can they be without feelings? Over the years, with those repeated calls of elder brother, the other party was not just a tool in his heart. Although, given his disposition, if he truly needed to sacrifice Mumai, he would most likely still sacrifice her. His heart had long been tempered into iron and stone by the fire of revenge over these 10 years. Mumai was merely that slight warmth of sunlight shining on the iron and stone. If you are no longer Mumai, will you still be willing to call me elder brother? Mumai, no, the red-clothed girl who was now Hazumi, was stunned for a few seconds. Then, a brilliant smile appeared on her face. She straightened up, putting her hands behind her back. Of course, you will always be my elder brother. Is that so? Footsteps, just then, footsteps came from outside, approaching from a distance. Hazumi quickly turned around. Mima Amatori also raised his head, his previously gentle expression returning to a calm state. Ikema. Hazumi looked in surprise as Ikema, with a gloomy face, stepped through the cell door opened by the man in black. He then walked to a corner and squatted down, remaining silent. What's wrong? Just as Hazumi was about to go over and ask, the man in black didn't immediately close the cell door but said, Mima Amatori, come out. Finally, it's my turn. Mima Amatori wasn't surprised, on the contrary, he had been waiting for a long time. Hazumi gritted her teeth and asked, where are you taking elder brother? To the place that kid just went. While the man in black was speaking, Mima Amatori had already walked out of the cell door. Soon, the two disappeared from Hazumi's sight, one after the other. This left her with no choice but to turn her attention back to Ikema. She quickly walked over and squatted down, asking nervously, "What's wrong? Did they hurt you?" "They want me to kill someone. They want me to use my things to kill someone. Only then are they willing to help us turn back into humans." Ikema raised his head, looking at the girl's delicate face. His gaze was full of struggle. He asked in a low, pained voice, "Miyumai, what should I do?" Hazumi squatted there, unsure of what to say. She knew all too well how difficult it was for the boy in front of her to accept killing. The girl cupped his face, revealing a lovely smile with dimples. "Who do they want you to kill?" "I'll kill them for you." Knock knock knock, the base chief's office door was knocked on again. Senior Director Addison leaned back in his chair and casually said, "Please come in." Mima Amatori's handsome figure slowly walked into the room. "Please sit, leader of the hunters. I think the identity of the son of the shogun is more valuable to you, isn't it?" Mima Amatori sat in the chair Ikema had previously occupied and said calmly, meeting his gaze, "No." Senior Director Addison shook his head. "Up until now, the hunter guard you lead has brought more value. As for the son of the shogun, what use is an identity that is about to cease being the son of the shogun? You underestimate yourself, and you underestimate the world government. You plan to overthrow the shogunate rule?" Mima Amatori was quite surprised by this. "Not exactly. The shogunate is still the shogunate, it's just that the people above have decided to replace the ruler." After saying this, Senior Director Addison picked up his cup and took a sip of coffee. Immediately, a fragrance filled his nostrils. "Why? Kiyu Amatori is a person with a strong exterior but a weak heart. You should have already learned that he is an extreme conservative faction. As long as his rule is guaranteed, he will obediently follow all your orders." After listening to Mima Amatori's words, Senior Director Addison smiled, put the coffee cup back, and said, "Perhaps that's the case, but the people above still feel it's more comfortable to replace him with a newcomer. This isn't the best choice. The Amatori family has ruled the shogunate for over 200 years. Doing this will definitely provoke the chief stewards from various places to rebel." Mima Amatori said expressionlessly, "Oh, I thought you would be very happy to see Kiyu Amatori suffer misfortune. It seems there's still deep father-son affection?" "No, this is just looking at the matter from a realistic standpoint. My previous goal was to first destroy Kongakaku, and then continue to destroy those despicable individuals who participated in causing the deaths of 40,000 troops 10 years ago. This would require destroying 80% of the stations. And the purpose of your tissue is to rule Hinamoto, right? Then there's no need to make enemies of everyone." Mima Amatori very naturally spoke of the most terrifying matter in an extremely brief manner. But if he were to succeed, one can imagine how many people would die under the flames of war and the Kobane. Senior Director Addison also witnessed this kid's ruthlessness and cold and ruthless nature. He somewhat understood why the important figures above appreciated him. Hey, do you know? For a person, whether to eat the chicken in front of them or switch to the chicken next to them, the only difference lies in their mood and whether they want to move their hand a bit more. He took out a document recording the basic situation of the world government from his drawer and placed it in front of Mima Amatori. "Take a look. Once you realize the meaning represented by the 4 words world government, you will understand how small your current perspective and scope are. You are taking the shogunate too seriously." Chapter 189, Staff Officer of the Staff Headquarters 1st Division Intelligence Department. Another world. The world government has 174 affiliated countries. Mima Amatori's hand holding the document trembled slightly in shock. At this moment, he felt an invisible wind, named information stream, blow towards him, making his breathing difficult. His pupils contracted violently. More than 170 nations similar to Hinamoto? Hey. Senior Director Addison smiled noncommittally, because he didn't know about this matter either. He knew neither the area data of Hinamoto nor the area data of the various affiliated countries in the home world. However, the islands of Sea Star World, while indeed islands, were not as small as depicted in the manga from M's previous life. Regarding the data related to the area of affiliated countries' islands, the only available data was the width of the Sandora River in Alabasta, which was 50 kilometers. Yes. 50 kilometers. From this, it could be estimated that the diameter of Alabasta from north to south was about 1,300 kilometers, equivalent to the entire length of Honshu Island in Hinamoto, and the diameter from east to west was over 1,600 kilometers. Let's calculate. The total area of the Alabasta Kingdom is around 2,080,000 square kilometers. The total area of all the islands in Hinamoto combined is only nearly 380,000 square kilometers. What kind of concept is this? The area of Alabasta is larger than Xinjiang province, which is 1,660,000 square kilometers, by the size of a Japan. Then, looking at other affiliated countries based on its area, such as the Drum Kingdom or the Dressrosa Kingdom, you would find that they are not much smaller. Expanding the perspective, comparing it to the entire Grand Line and the Red Line, you would realize just how vast the true pirate world is. Oh. It took Mima Amatori a long time to recover, and he sighed. No wonder I hadn't heard of you before. So that's how it is. What are your thoughts now? That's what I want to ask you. Showing me this means I'm still useful to you, or rather, you are willing to accept me? Smart. Senior Director Addison praised. The important figures above the greatly appreciate you, appreciating your talent in military matters and your way of doing things. So, are you willing to join? Join? Mima Amatori raised an eyebrow and asked. What identity would I join with, what would I do after joining, and I don't want to give up the blood feud I carry. You don't have to give up. On the contrary, you can complete your revenge with our strength. After occupying Kongakaku, you can have Kiyu Amatori handed over to you to handle. You understand what I mean, right? Senior Director Addison looked at the other party meaningfully. Although the latter remained silent, he clearly understood the deeper meaning of that sentence. That is, he was allowed to kill Kiyu Amatori with his own hands, but he must kill Kiyu Amatori with his own hands. What about after that? Didn't you just say it? Afterward, it will attract the punitive expeditions of many regional powers. At that time, we'll ask you to guide our army. After all, you are sufficiently familiarized with the environment of this nation. As for your identity, Senior Director Addison thought for a moment, took out another document from the drawer, and said, this is a staff appointment letter from the Staff Department 1st Division under the Supreme Military Command, the Army Intelligence Department. Once you and the Army have mostly resolved the matter here, you can take it and report to the Army headquarters in Landi Force. Although this position level isn't very high, it's the most suitable for you right now. Mima Amatori looked at the single letter of appointment, a spark of excitement flickering in his gaze. To be honest, he was tempted and also surprised that the world government would value him so much. Someone as terrifying as me, you dare to use? Senior Director Addison had a speechless expression. Seeing this, Mima Amatori gave a bitter smile. That's right, what is this little skill of mine worth to you? It's good that you know, but what you know now is just the tip of the iceberg. You'll slowly understand over time. By the way, do you want to return to being a normal human? Mima Amatori smiled. You're talking about the white serum developed by Dr. Shawai, right? Actually, I willingly became a Kabinarai. To become strong? Yes, I've always felt that only experts are qualified to survive, and the weak have no authority to live. It's just that now. Mima Amatori lowered his head and looked at the heart glowing red inside his clothes, giving a bitter smile. In response, Senior Director Addison smiled. Excuse me, after I become an Army staff officer, can I receive relevant training and possess the strength that those people who call themselves Cypher Paul have? Mima Amatori did not hide the desire in his gaze. Training is definitely not a problem, but whether you can become as strong as them cannot be guaranteed. Because according to the research of the Biochemical Research Institute, the innate physique of people in your world is too weak compared to people in our world. And those people you saw before, even in our world, are lead existences who have broken through the human limit and can be called superhuman. You need to understand the difficulty involved. Clearly, Senior Director Addison didn't think Mima Amatori could become very strong. He then comforted him. Your value to the world government is not in combat power, which is why your arrangement is to the Staff Department. In the future, don't worry about strength anymore. However, there was something he kept to himself. That was, even within the Staff Department, most people were stronger than Mima Amatori. The reason he said most people instead of everyone was because Mima had the foundation of being a Kabinarai supporting him. My suggestion to you is, once white serum can be mass-produced, you should quickly change back to an ordinary human. Since you don't need to participate in combat, why turn yourself into something neither human nor ghost? But Mima Amatori was unwilling. He was unwilling to become ordinary people. The expert he envisioned was an existence that combined combat power, influence, and intelligence. I still want to try. If I still can't become an expert after trying my best. Alright, but once you witness the true expert of our world, you'll understand what despair is. The fundamental gap is simply too vast, as adult in your world are only equivalent in physique to child in our world. After speaking, Senior Director Addison shook head and stopped talking about this matter. Alright, I've made arrangement for someone to send you back to Hidden Stone's Village Tow Station. You will temporarily stay by Vice Admiral Crocodile's side and personally witness Kongakaku being occupied and Kiyu Amatori being brought before you. Perhaps this will make you give up your impossible idea sooner. Mima Amatori nodded, stood up, and asked again. May I ask who you plan to make the new shogun? Yatsugawa. You should have met her. It's actually her. Mima Amatori sighed, lamenting. No wonder you had her stay at Hidden Stone's village tow station to manage the citizens. You had already made the decision long ago. What about Mumai? The little girl who was locked up with me. He still preferred to call her Mumai, because Hazumi belonged to Ikema. Oh, does she also have some special talent? Senior Director Addison asked curiously. Talent? Among the Kabanari I've seen, she is the strongest, including myself. Does that count? He. Addison was amused and couldn't help but laugh out loud. He waved his hand and said. All right, go attend to your own matter. We won't do anything to her, she's just temporarily held. Chapter 190, 5th Update. Stella's Live Report. See Star Home World. Hello, viewers watching the world broadcast. Today is 1:30 p.m. on August 11th, Marine Calendar 1498. I am Stella, and today I will be introducing the main content to everyone. Across various countries, various islands, and various places, on countless projection screens, the same blonde beauty appeared. She had a beautiful face, a graceful figure, a bright smile, and was dressed in white professional attire. Countless citizens instantly recognized Stella. After all, that Liberation Day gala was truly impressive. Not only were the songs pleasant to listen to and the dances beautiful, but the person herself was also breathtakingly gorgeous. Far away in Mary Jo eyes, Im was also quite surprised watching Stella on the screen. Wasn't this woman following Tesoro as a star? What he didn't know was that after careful consideration over the past few days, Stella realized she didn't enjoy performing songs and dances on stage like Tesoro did. She only liked listening to Tesoro sing and watching Tesoro dance. Although Tesoro was disappointed, deeply in love with Stella, he didn't want to make her do something she disliked. Later, after discussing with officials from the propaganda department, he decided to become an official reporter. Her main job was to interview Tesoro about his matters, and occasionally take on the mission of live reporting. This time, she came out with Tesoro. The place I am currently in is Tequila Wolf in the East Blue. Most people are probably unfamiliar with this name, right? But if I were to say Bridge on the Sea or Labor Country, I believe everyone would remember this place. As soon as Stella finished speaking, sure enough, many people watching the live broadcast showed expressions of sudden realization. Except for some young people who were unfamiliar, citizens of a certain age had heard of this place to some extent. 700 years ago, the world government, in order to connect islands and facilitate convenient transportation between various nations, ordered the construction of these massive great bridges. Stella turned sideways, letting the camera pan past her, revealing the huge stone bridge, already more than half built, to everyone's eyes. The circular bridge arches, estimated to be 40 to 50 meters high each, left the citizens speechless. It was the first time they had seen such a massive bridge. Looking at the half-finished sections still under construction, one could clearly see they were filled with a large amount of steel bars, allowing one to imagine how solid the bridge was. And in order to build these great bridges, the world government at that time, so as not to affect the normal lives of the affiliated country citizens, brought the royalty, nobility, and citizens of non-affiliated nations who refused to affiliate with the government and refused to pay heavenly tribute, as well as criminals from various nations, here as laborers. This part of Stella's report, without surprise, caused a great discussion among the citizens of various nations. Some felt that the world government's actions were inappropriate, but others refuted the former, asking if the citizens of non-affiliated nations didn't do bridge building, should the affiliated country citizens who paid heavenly tribute on time do it instead? As of today, the Tequila Wolf project is basically 2/3 completed. Logically, since it's nearing completion, the construction speed should be accelerated. However, according to the latest news I have received, the world government, in order to respect and cooperate with this year's Reverie agenda item, has decided to gradually release the citizens of the non-affiliated nations who are currently doing bridge building. The East Blue Navy will escort them back to their homeland, and government officials will also be dispatched to assist them in re-establishing their nations and returning to normal life as soon as possible. Stella reported excitedly into the visual dendenmushi in front of her. Her goodwill towards the world government had reached its peak at this moment. What? At the same time, hundreds of millions of citizens from various nations were instantly shocked by her words. Many men and women subconsciously opened their mouths wide, their chins almost hitting the ground. Their voices were so loud they nearly shook the entire kingdom slightly. And the report on the live broadcast continued. Yes, everyone did not mishear. The world government has decided to use the prisoners from Impel Down as laborers to continue the construction of the Great Bridge, replacing the citizens of the non-affiliated nations. However, to avoid causing too much negative impact on the bridge construction project, the release will be done in batches, with the labor exchange plan to be completed within 1 year. As soon as she finished speaking, under the sky in various places that Stella couldn't see, bursts of deafening cheers resounded through the blue sky and white clouds of various nations. Everyone was loudly praising the world government's benevolent governance. In this process, the world government's impression in people's hearts was further improved. But it is worth mentioning that the royalty and nobility of the non-affiliated nations will not be released, because the world government believes that as the king and nobility of a nation, they should bear greater responsibility and crime than the citizens. Speaking of this, Stella's expression became serious, and the audience watching the live broadcast gradually quieted down. I believe everyone has a question in their heart now: what should be done if there are non-affiliated nations in the future? This is precisely the main content of the next reverie. First, the world government is considering making all kingdoms and islands that have not yet affiliated into affiliated countries. Therefore, there will be no so-called non-affiliated nations in the future, and no such thing as refusing affiliation. Secondly, for kingdoms that have the ability to pay heavenly tribute but refuse to pay, the world government will only impose sanctions on the royalty and nobility of that nation, no longer implicating all the citizens. And for kingdoms that genuinely do not have the ability to pay heavenly tribute, the world government will dispatch a professional economic team to investigate. After confirming the situation is true, they will consider reducing or exempting heavenly tribute for 1 to 4 years, and fully support the economic development of that kingdom, enabling it to quickly become prosperous and become a normal nation capable of paying heavenly tribute. Having said so much in one breath, Stella quickly took a breath, but the excitement on her face was so pleasing to the eye for the audience, although they were already confused. At the same time, the Celestial Tribute Collection and Management Committee under the World Government's Finance Department will begin investigating the tax rate situation in various nations. If they find excessive tax rates, chaotic tax items, or the secondary apportionment of heavenly tribute to the citizens, they will first issue a warning. If they do not rectify, they will also face severe sanctions. For this purpose, the Celestial Tribute Collection and Management Committee will announce a reporting hotline. If citizens of various nations find their national taxes too heavy, please actively provide feedback. The Dendenmushi number is 8204534438. Repeating, it is 8204534438. Please supervise the kingdom's tax issues together. Remember, behind you is the strong world government. For some reason, Stella didn't mention anything about reforming the heavenly tribute distribution ratio. After she finished speaking, she started walking around, and the camera followed closely, which aroused the curiosity of the citizens watching the live broadcast. Next, I will lead everyone on a tour of this bridge on the sea, as well as the entire process of today's exchange between the first batch of 50,000 citizens to be released and the 20,000 impel-down prisoners who have came to take over the laborers. Meanwhile, through the video feed, citizens of various nations saw warships from various branches of the East Blue anchored at the dock of the stone bridge. Large numbers of prisoners wearing black and white striped prison uniforms were escorted onto the bridge by the Marines. As the camera turned, they saw another area where many men, women, old and young, gathered, their faces full of fatigue but excitedly shedding tears. It was clear they were the laborers who were about to return to their homeland. "Oh, right!" Stella exclaimed with an expression as if she had just remembered something, laughing loudly. To celebrate the world government's horn of liberation sounding in the sky above Tequila Wolf, from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m., the world superstar Tesoro and a rising star who is about to rise will present a wonderful song and dance performance for the laborers here who are still waiting for liberation. This is also to thank them for their diligent contribution to the world and the East Blue until now. Wow! Countless cheers once again resounded in the various places in the world. This time, people were happy that they could watch song and dance and hold banquets tonight, and it was no longer just cheering for the laborers. Chapter 191, 6th Update. Extra update for Shaming Tsai Bijiao. Fishman Island, 10,000 meters beneath the Holy Land Marie Joais. Keep going! Keep going! Everyone, push together. At this moment, all the Sea King Army soldiers were mobilized. In addition, more than a dozen massive sea beasts came to assist. So, what were they doing? Looking out, one could see a supermassive tower ship, its volume nearly half the size of the nearby Fishman Island, floating beside the roots of the Sun Tree Eve. Noah. Compared to it, the sea beasts above, using thick white ropes to pull it forcefully, appeared much smaller. Furthermore, a large number of Kuai-Igasu wood pieces were attached to its body, working together with the sea beasts by virtue of their own superbuoyancy. This type of wood is commonly used when ships return from Fishman Island to the Great Sea. People connect them with ropes and throw them outside the coating bubble, then let them carry the ship upwards. Now, King Neptune had taken out all the Kuiigasuwood in storage. And below, King Neptune himself led over 100,000 Sea King army soldiers, shoulder to shoulder, densely packed and attached to the ship bottom, pushing upwards with all their strength. Yet, even so, Noah's ascent speed was still too slow. Actually, it wasn't that they were powerless. This was originally an island-class tower ship that required the combined effort of Super Sea Kings to pull. Honestly, the fact that King Neptune and his forces could pull it out of the Fishman district was already a remarkable achievement. Because besides Noah's weight, they also had to contend with the water pressure 10,000 meters down. In such a place, even a submarine would be crushed into scrap metal. Only the special physique of fishmen allowed them to exert strength here. Countless citizens within Fishman Island gathered in a dense mass, looking up in shock at the spectacular scene above, occasionally discussing something with those beside them. Even the Marines from the Marine branch stopped their training. Ha 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 ha, what are they doing? Suddenly, a hearty laugh rang out from behind them. This startled the Marines of various ranks. The Marine soldiers who were training continued their runs, those doing push-ups continued their push-ups, while the officers wearing the coat of justice turned around and looked awkwardly at the newcomer. Vice Admiral Garp. No, my apologies, Iron Fist Admiral Garp. Marine officers straightened their postures, raised their heads and chests, and saluted Garp. Although it hadn't been announced in the newspaper yet, the commanders among them had already received the notification. This made their gaze towards this Marine hero even more fervent and worshipful. After all, Vice Admiral and Admiral just sounded different. Seeing their gaze and the title they used for him, Garp's face showed a helpless expression. Behind him, Bogart smiled, pressing down on his gentleman's hat. It's worth mentioning that as Garp was promoted to Admiral, Bogart was also promoted to Vice Admiral and continued to serve as the former's adjutant. Because Okiji had recently gone to the extreme ice continent for a mission, the two of them would be staying on Fishman Island for a few months to guard it in his place. Reporting, Iron Fist Admiral Garp, I heard that the world government, in exchange for waiving 2 years of heavenly tribute, requested Fishman Island to give Noah to the world noble celestial dragons. So King Neptune is leading the entire Sea King army and trained sea beasts, attempting to push it to the sea surface. A Marine colonel reported loudly. It's the celestial dragons again. Weren't they told to stay up there? What do they need such a big ship for? Garp complained without reservation. He suddenly felt that although the world government had undergone significant changes recently, the celestial dragons were still the celestial dragons. A dog can't change its ways, they just keep causing trouble. I actually think it's quite a change that they at least offered a reward this time. Adjutant Bogart said softly. He knew how enormous the wealth represented by 2 years of heavenly tribute was now. Trading a discarded antique giant ship for it was actually very profitable. Humphrey. Garp snorted dismissively, then stretched his muscular body, grinning as he said. Just so happens this old man has nowhere to use his strength. Let me feel the weight of this Noah. What? The officers were greatly surprised by these words, but Garp had no interest in acknowledging them. With a bang, he cracked the ground beneath his feet, and his entire person instantly disappeared from the spot. Then, amidst a series of sonic booms, he manifested as a white meteor, bursting out of Fishman Island's double-layered bubble and moving through the Great Sea 10,000 meters down, relying entirely on his hockey-enhanced physical body. Only here was his speed a bit slower, allowing one to see faint after-image traces. Unlike the other Marines who were stunned speechless by this scene, Adjutant Bogart was full of helplessness, thinking. Still as reckless as ever. He had already guessed what this big shot was about to do. Outside Fishman Island. Rumble, with a thunderous roar, Garp forcefully pushed away the seawater along his path, appearing beside King Neptune at an extremely fast speed. Because the latter's body size was comparable to the giant race, reaching 12 meters, while he was only just over 2.8 meters, not even 3 meters. To have an equal dialogue, he could only choose to stop beside the other party's neck. Garp. King Neptune, who was bulging his entire body's muscles and desperately pushing the ship bottom of Noah, turned his head in surprise and saw that there seemed to be an invisible layer of air around the other party, pushing the surrounding seawater away by about 10 centimeters in thickness. Ha ha ha, this old man is here to help. How long will it take you to push it like this? After explaining his purpose, Garp didn't wait for the Fishman King's agreement. He placed his 2 broad palms on the smooth ship bottom and tried pushing with 3 layers of strength. Feeling the giant ship's weight and the water pressure from all directions, Garp revealed a smile of excitement. He felt he had found a great training method. This big thing is indeed powerful enough. Ha! Ha! He let out a terrifying roar from his mouth, his arms and posture began to exert force, veins bulging on his body, muscles bulging as if about to burst. The next moment, Noah, which had previously only struggled upwards meter by meter under the full strength pulling and pushing of over 100,000 seeking army, a dozen sea beasts, and hundreds of kuai wood pieces, suddenly began to move slowly at a speed visible to the naked eye. All the Fishman tribe, Merfolk tribe, and all the Marines who witnessed this scene instantly turned to stone. The thought in everyone's minds was almost identical. How is this possible? But just then, a battleship flying the world government flag and covered in a layer of bubble approached. Immediately after, more than a dozen men in black covered in bubbles flew out from the deck and quickly came beside King Neptune and Garp. The person leading them turned out to be a beautiful blonde woman, but this woman's gaze towards them was very strange. King Neptune, what are you doing? World government people? Why are you here already? We haven't sent it to the sea surface yet. Come back in a few days to receive it. King Neptune looked speechlessly at the dozen or so men in black, feeling they were a bit too anxious. We didn't ask you to push it up. We just said we would came to take Noah away. As for how we take it, that's naturally our matter. Stussy said, spreading her palms helplessly. Chapter 192, Iron Fist Garp pushes Noah alone. Yes, the person who arrived was none other than Stussy of Cypher Pal 9 agent. But she was supposed to be in Mary Joey's playing tennis and drinking coffee with him, so why would she appear here? You'll take it yourselves? How will you take it? King Neptune looked at Stussy in disbelief after hearing her words. Only Garp, who was beside them, was still fully focused on pushing Noah. Although the tendons on his forehead were prominent, his face was filled with excitement. I am a Paramsha System mini fruit ability user. I can shrink anything I touch by a multiple. So you don't need to pull it out at all, or even push it to the sea surface. You just need to take me to where it's located. Stussy said with a wry smile. She really didn't expect that she would cause such a huge misunderstanding for Fishman Island, leading to such a grand mobilization. As for this so-called mini fruit, it was given to her by the Holy Affairs Department under the order of the Grand Steward Institute 2 days ago, taken from the Holy Land Treasury. The purpose, of course, was for her to provide better service to Saint Nerona in the future when following them. After considering it for a day, Stussy still agreed, because she felt that with her current strength, her help to Saint Nerona wasn't that significant. If she wanted to continue following by their side, she definitely needed to increase her value and usefulness. This. King Neptune was stunned after hearing this. He hadn't expected it to be this kind of matter. He complained speechlessly. Then you should have made it clear. He had been thinking of helping the world government push Noah to the sea's surface with the strength of the entire nation, to make it convenient for them to take it away, because the world government's recent various friendly policies towards Fishman Island had indeed been implemented effectively. This allowed his citizens to not only have better personal safety guarantees but also enabled them to freely play and enjoy the forest, sky, and sunlight on Sabati Archipelago. But now it seemed it was all a misunderstanding. Thank you for His Majesty King Neptune's kindness. I will definitely convey Fishman Island's goodwill to the lords above, but now please let go, Your Majesty, Admiral Garp, and the warriors of the Seeking Army. Stussy said politely with a friendly smile on her face. All right. King Neptune actually breathed a sigh of relief. After all, pushing such a large and heavy giant ship to the sea surface 10,000 meters above was simply terrifying in difficulty. All right, everyone let go. He shouted loudly, and as the order rippled out in all directions, the Seeking Army, who were already out of breath, let go one after another and retreated. The scene of tens of thousands of soldiers letting go was actually quite spectacular. However, as the strength of so many people relaxed at the same time, Noah immediately sank down. The sea beasts above also quickly broke free from the thick ropes on them, leaving only the densely packed kuai wood still persisting alone. No. They were not alone. Noah only sank about 10 meters before it was held up by some kind of strength at the ship bottom, and even began to rise back up. Gah! Garp! King Neptune looked at Garp, who was still pushing with gritted teeth, and shouted anxiously. What are you doing? Let go. You don't need to push anymore. Yes, please let go, Mr. Garp. You can leave the rest to me. Stussy also advised from the side. Get lost. But Garp didn't appreciate it. While continuing to push Noah, he gritted his teeth and cursed. It belongs to this old man now. If you dare to touch it carelessly, don't blame me for giving you a few punches. He had certainly heard Stussy's words, but precisely because of that, he was even more dissatisfied. He had already made the decision to push Noah to the sea surface by himself, and he had to do it. How could he allow this woman to interfere randomly? This. Stussy didn't know what to say. She could only look at the officials who had come with her, but the latter secretly shook their heads at her, signaling her not to act rashly. They actually understood the temper of this Admiral Garp. But how long are you going to push like this? The lords up there are still waiting. Stussy had no choice but to bring up the celestial dragons. It was a matter that she only needed to tap a few times to resolve, so why make it so complicated? She really couldn't understand the thoughts of this marine hero, Iron Fist Admiral Garp. Then let those celestial dragons wait. Garp's roar, along with Noah's steady ascent, erupted 10,000 meters below the seabed, completely shocking all the fishmen, mermaids, and humans present. At the same time, on the sea surface 10,000 meters above, another official warship of the world government arrived at the front island gate through the slowly opening Gate of Justice. This was the first main gate of Anai's lobby, heavily guarded by a large number of marines. But for the men in black who disembarked from this ship, passage was unobstructed. They were officials from the Audit Department Inspection Division, subordinate to the Political Affairs Department. After passing through the first main gate and walking across the wide passage floating above the giant underwater abyss, they arrived before the second main gate. Here, they saw two giant race members, each about 16 meters tall. One held a giant axe, and the other held a cane abo. They were the former giant warrior pirates crewmates who had been stationed here for 26 years. Seeing the group of officials in suits walking over, the two silently pushed open the gate behind them. But strangely, only a portion of them quickly walked in, while 3 people remained in front of them, which drew their curious gaze. "Are you two Mr. Oimo and Mr. Cache?" The man in black standing at the front shouted loudly towards them. The two giant race members exchanged glances, then Cache, who held the giant axe, spoke. "That's us. Aren't you going in? I am Division Chief Grover of the Audit Department Inspection Division. I have come specifically regarding the matter of you two being deceived." "What?" Mr. Oimo and Mr. Cache were greatly surprised. The latter quickly pressed. "What deception? 26 years ago, were you two told by the people here that Captain Dory and Captain Brogy of the giant warrior pirates were captured by the world government and imprisoned in Impel Down?" "That's right." Cache nodded heavily, then squatted down to look at Division Chief Grover and said. "They said that if we guarded the gate here for 100 years, the two captains would be released. The deception I'm talking about is this matter." Division Chief Grover looked at the two giants before him with a serious face and stated solemnly. "According to our investigation, your captains were not captured by us. You were deceived by a few individuals on Miss Anai's lobby, and we are here to handle this matter and seek justice for you two." "What?" Oimo and Cache roared in anger. This alerted many nearby marines, who began to slowly gather towards them, but they were stopped by the officers who arrived in time, preventing them from further provoking these already sensitive nerves. "Please look, are they the ones who deceived you back then?" Division Chief Grover faced the wrath of such colossus without the slightest panic. Instead, he pointed towards the 3 officials from the Ministry of Justice who were being escorted by his subordinates from inside the gate. Indeed, Oimo and Cache, hearing the reminder, quickly turned around to look. Instantly, their faces were filled with rage, and they roared. "That's right. It was them. Is that so? Good." The division chief revealed a meaningful smile. Chapter 193, 10 years as Giant Guard. Judge Emerson, currently responsible for judge training at the Judicial Talent Court under the Supreme Court. Judge Jerome, currently responsible for judge promotions and assessments at the Judges Court. Presiding Judge Russell, currently responsible for supervising lower-level judges in the 4 seas and possessing the authority to mobilize judicial ships at the Judicial Circuit Court. These 3, enduring the furious stares of the 2 giants, walked over dejectedly under the escort of Inspection Division government officials. So many years had passed. These individuals, who were grassroots officials back then, were now a presiding judge and 2 high-ranking officials. They never dreamed they would have such a day. "Judge Emerson, Judge Jerome, Presiding Judge Russell, do you admit that 26 years ago you falsely claimed the world government had captured Captain Dory and Brogy of the giant warrior pirates, thereby deceiving Mr. Oimo and Mr. Cache into guarding Anai's lobby for 100 years? Chief Grover questioned them righteously and sternly, adopting a completely business-like posture of justice. "Yes. That's right." After a moment of silence, the 3 nodded painfully and confessed. What else could they do? Were they supposed to say they were just following orders from their superiors back then? But if they said that, their families behind them would surely suffer together. They were no longer newcomers to the officialdom. They knew very well that they had become discarded pawns thrown out. Since resistance was impossible, they could only accept reality. At least if they cooperated, only they themselves would be unlucky. You bastards!" Mr. Cache roared in anger, his voice so loud it transformed into a strong wind that spread out, causing Division Chief Grover's expensive suit and hair to flutter continuously. "Damn it! You all deserve to die." Mr. Oimo, holding his cane abo, was also full of rage. Although for the giant race, who have a lifespan of 300 years, The concept of 26 years is equivalent to about 9 years for humans. They didn't feel it was particularly long. But they were still very angry. Or rather, compared to the 26 years wasted time, these members of the giant race were actually more concerned about being deceived. Mr. Oimo, Mr. Cache, given their status as judges, according to the rules, the judiciary cannot be the referee. Among them, Judge Emerson and Judge Jerome will be handled by our inspection division. But Presiding Judge Russell is the presiding judge of the Judicial Circuit Court and a second-tier high-ranking official, so he must be handed over to the Grand Committee under the Supreme Executive Committee. Division Chief Grover's words once again attracted the giant's attention. Then how will you deal with them? Mr. Cache asked in a deep voice, suppressing his anger. Mr. Oimo beside him also stared intently at this division chief who seemed to possess considerable authority. Judge Emerson and Judge Jerome, by the authority of the division chief of the inspection division, I declare their judge qualifications revoked and sentence them to the death penalty. Division Chief Grover spoke the words death penalty without hesitation, causing Judge Emerson and Judge Jerome before him to tremble all over, their lowered faces filled with despair. Furthermore, the execution is immediate. As soon as his voice fell, before Mr. Cache and Mr. Oimo could react, they saw the inspection division officials beside the two men pull out a pistol directly from their inner jacket pockets. Bang! Bang! After two crisp gunshots, Judge Emerson and Judge Jerome's heads were instantly pierced, leaving everyone present stunned. Beside them, although Presiding Judge Russell knew he wouldn't die here, he still couldn't control his body from trembling violently in fear. Large patches of cold sweat had already seeped from his head and back. This. Mr. Cache and Mr. Oimo looked at the corpses lying in the pool of blood, speechless for a long time. It wasn't that they were scared by the dead, but they hadn't expected them to die so quickly. On their behalf, I express our most sincere apologies to the two of you for being deceived. However, I also sincerely hope that you will not hold resentment towards the world government because of this, and even more so, that this will not affect the friendship between us and the giant race. Division Chief Grover said in a deep voice, raising his head. The friendship between the world government and the giant race he spoke of referred to the friendship formed 74 years ago when 4 members of the giant race who caused great trouble were saved by Sister Carmel just before their execution by Marine headquarters. Since then, Sister Carmel established the House of Lambs in the giant kingdom of Elbaf, a place that takes in homeless children regardless of race or identity. Using this as a stronghold, she continuously supplied Marine headquarters with giant warriors, which is the so-called giant unit. Therefore, the relationship between the world government and the giant race was indeed quite good. Although Elbaf is not affiliated with the world government, who can blame them when their strength is sufficient? Naturally, they don't need to go to the East Blue for bridge building. Mr. Cache and Mr. Oimo were naturally aware of this, because those 4 captured members of the giant race were actually also members of their giant warrior pirates. Now seeing Division Chief Grover's attitude so sincere, the two quickly waved their hands and said, Of course, there are bad people among our giant race too, we can understand that, we won't blame it on you. Although the giant race's personality is generally rough and bold, it's interesting that, overall, they are peaceful. Yes. Truly peaceful individuals, meaning they like to engage in combat anytime and anywhere, but don't like to casually start wars. So, you could also say the giant race is very gentle. That's great. It's just, as I said before, we need to take Presiding Judge Russell with us, but I can guarantee his fate won't be good. There's an 80% chance he'll be imprisoned in Impel Down Fortress. Division Chief Grover said. Alright, we trust you. Mr. Cache and Mr. Oimo exchanged glances and nodded. Finally, smiles appeared on their faces. Oh, right. Just as the few men in black were cleaning up the 2 corpses, Division Chief Grover seemed to remember something and said. According to our intelligence, Captain Dory and Captain Brogy are currently still dueling on Little Garden. After the 2 of you leave here, you must be planning to go meet them, right? That's right. We definitely need to see them. The 2 giants nodded. Excellent. Then could I trouble the 2 of you with something? Division Chief Grover asked amiably, striking while the iron was hot. Go ahead, consider it. Thanks for telling us the truth. Mr. Cache patted his chest and laughed heartily. In their opinion, the world government was willing to reveal the facts and sanction the culprits, which is equivalent to saving them the next 74 years of time. This was definitely a favor. It's like this, a distinguished world noble will be traveling on a long journey soon. Would it be possible to ask the 2 of you to serve as guard for a period? Hearing it was this kind of matter, Mr. Cache hesitated and subconsciously looked at Mr. Oimo beside him, asking. What do you think? The latter thought for a moment and said. Serving as guard is fine, but will this conflict with us going to see the captains? It won't. because that world noble also expressed a desire to meet the two captains of the giant warrior pirates from back then, so it's actually along the way. Division Chief Grover briefly explained. With that, Mr. Oimo felt relieved and smiled at Mr. Cachet. Since that's the case, let's agree. How about 10 years? Serving as his guard for 10 years would be repaying the favor. Alright, that's only right. Mr. Cachet nodded heavily, stood up, and hoisted his great axe onto his shoulder. He laughed heartily at the short division chief on the ground. We'll guarantee the personal safety of that world noble for 10 years. Chapter 194, Mima Amatori surprises Sand Crocodile. While the world government was making various preparations for M's upcoming travel, their footsteps in the Kabinarai world did not stop in the slightest. Although this super battleship from another planet, named Planet C, only dispatched a small landing craft because the Stargate entrance was too small, it was still enough to stir up a gale and affect the myriad citizens in every aspect within this Stargate world number 0001. When Mima Amatori returned to Hidden Stone's Village tow station by train, he was startled by the sight before him as soon as he walked out of the station gate. He stood on the high stairs platform and looked down at the city below. There were no longer any cabane to be seen in the streets and alleys, nor could he hear gunshots or wailing. Only large numbers of men and women were clearing residual bloodstains, cleaning up burnt ruins, and repairing damaged houses. Everyone had a slight smile on their face. Around the station and on the city walls further away, black-clad soldiers holding strange firearms were stationed. They seemed to have no intention of interfering with the citizens' activities. Mima Amatori, right? At this moment, an army major wearing a black justice coat walked over and asked him. Mima Amatori withdrew his gaze and said, "That's me. Come with me. Vice Admiral Crocodile wants to see you." After speaking, the major didn't wait for his response at all, turned around directly, and quickly walked down the steps. Mima Amatori naturally followed, but his brows furrowed slightly because he detected a relatively obvious hint of contempt in the major's gaze. Leaving the station and arriving at the streets of the built-up area, a sense of life immediately washed over him. Mom. It's already lunchtime." A little girl who looked 7 or 8 years old excitedly grabbed the corner of her young mother's kimono and jumped and shouted excitedly, causing the surrounding adults who were still working to also show expectant expressions. "Yes, those army lords will deliver delicious bread and milk soon. Aren't you happy?" The mother smiled gently. "And luncheon meat. Luncheon meat is the most fragrant." Ha 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 ha. The little girl's serious emphasis triggered laughter from many people. This joyful atmosphere was like a refreshing wind that swept away the lingering smell of blood and char in the air. The citizens here had basically heard terms like world government, army, and Vice Admiral Crocodile. Although no one had explained the concepts in detail, they didn't particularly understand them yet. But the combat power that swept away all the cabane in the entire fortress in just a day and a half, the soft bread, fragrant milk, and salty luncheon meat delivered on time 3 times a day, and the strict discipline that didn't disturb the citizens at all, were enough for them to quickly accept the existence of this mysterious army. Honestly, in this situation, for these low-level civilians, whether the ruler was the shogunate or someone else, no one truly cared. What they didn't know was that the overall discipline of the army soldier wasn't actually as excellent as they saw. Only these 5,000 people personally trained by Bullet were an exception. If they didn't want to be kicked by Bullet upon returning, they had to act according to the rules he set. Previously, at the army headquarters, Bullet had publicly kicked many defiant troublemakers to death. At that time, some people thought he would definitely face punishment and sanctions for doing so, but who would have thought that no one at all came to manage Bullet? It was as if those people in the upper echelons were completely unaware of these matters. Since then, these 5,000 army soldiers had become completely obedient. "Look, lunch is here." Following an excited shout from afar, Mima Amatori, who was walking past with the army major in front of him, turned his head and saw 4 army riding strange motorcycles, slowly driving towards them, pulling a large iron box with 4 wheels. During this process, the citizens on both sides successively took out a meal tray from inside, on which was placed a piece of bread the size of 2 fists, a milk paper box, and an iron can. No one took an extra one, and no one caused any trouble. Everyone who received food bowed and thanked the 4 soldiers. Even the major in front of him was watched with grateful gazes by the citizens along the way. After all, safety and sustenance after this disaster were so precious. However, these army officers and soldiers showed no reaction to this, all ignoring it with expressionless faces, which made Mima Amatori feel increasingly uneasy. It wasn't that he was thinking for these citizens, but rather that he was worried about being treated coldly himself after going to the army headquarters later. Just thinking about that situation felt uncomfortable. "We're here. Go in. You should be more familiar with the environment of this place than we are." "Okay." Mima Amatori looked at the city gate in front of him and nodded, thinking to himself. So they're using the city gate as a temporary base. That makes sense. The governor's mansion was destroyed, so if they don't want to sleep on the streets, they can only stay here. The city walls on both sides of the station city gate, being high and thick enough, had various rooms built inside, serving as dormitories for the city guard soldiers and facilitating nearby management of the city gate and city walls. Mima Amatori glanced at the back of the major, who looked like he didn't want to bother with him, and walked into the gate inside the wall under the watchful eyes of the soldiers guarding on both sides. He had actually never been inside the wall of Hidden Stone's Villegto station before, but because the building layout of every station was similar, he just needed to find the office of the city guard samurai. Knock knock knock, come in. Mima Amatori heard the sound and pushed the door open. The next moment, his face was washed by the thick smoke filling the room. This was extremely uncomfortable and repulsive for him, as he didn't smoke, but he managed to keep a straight face and calmly looked at the giant sitting behind the office desk.